Hello guys, welcome to Phonic What If. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto washed ashore on Amazon Lily&Boa Hancock fell in love with his immunity to her charms. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Stranger Tides Pain. That was Naruto Uzumaki's first conscious thought as salt water filled his lungs and the ocean current pulled his battered body through darkness. His limbs felt like lead, unresponsive to his desperate commands to move. The last thing he remembered was Kagaya's dimensional rift collapsing around him as he pushed Sasuke and Sakura to safety. So this is death, he thought dimly as consciousness slipped away again. Didn't expect it to be so wet. The rhythmic crash of waves against shoreline drew him back from the void. Something rough scraped against his cheek, sand. Somehow, he'd washed ashore. Each breath sent knives through his chest, but he was breathing air now, not water. The midday sun beat down mercilessly on his face, its warmth a stark contrast to the cold emptiness he'd fallen through. Naruto forced his eyes open, wincing at the blinding light. He attempted to push himself upright but collapsed immediately as pain erupted across his torso. Looking down, he saw his tattered orange and black jacket was soaked with seawater and blood, mostly his own. The seal containing Kurama glowed faintly beneath his shredded shirt, pulsing weak. Kaylee as the Nine Tails struggled to heal the worst of his wounds. "Hang in there, Kurama," he whispered, voice raw from saltwater. "I'm trying, kid, but something's wrong. Our chakra feels different here." Before Naruto could contemplate this, the sound of movement caught his attention. With tremendous effort, he tilted his head toward the dense jungle bordering the pristine beach. The vegetation rustled, and suddenly he wasn't alone. Women emerged from the treeline, at least a dozen of them, clad in leather and furs that left little to the imagination. But what caught Naruto's attention was their revealing attire, but the weapons they carried. Bows drawn taut, spears aimed at his heart, and what appeared to be snakes that transformed into lethal-looking bows. "A man," one of them hissed, disgust evident in her voice. "How did he get past our defenses?" Another demanded. "The calm belt is impassable without a marine vessel." "It doesn't matter," declared a tall woman with short auburn hair who seemed to be their leader. "Men are forbidden on Amazon Lily. Empress Hancock will decide his fate." Naruto tried to speak, to explain that he meant no harm, but only managed a wet cough that sprayed blood onto the white sand. His vision blurred again, darkness creeping in at the edges. The last thing he saw was the women approaching cautiously, spears still trained on his barely moving form. The last thing he felt was rough hands binding his wrists with chains that seemed to drain what little strength remained in his body. "See stone cuffs for this one," the leader ordered. "We take no chances." Then blessed unconsciousness claimed him once more. Dreams and memories swirled in Naruto's mind. Flashes of the war, of Kagaya's terrifying power, of pushing his friends to Sofit. Why before the dimensional rift collapsed around him? He saw Sasuke's eyes widen in uncharacteristic horror as he realized what Naruto was doing. He heard Sakura's scream as the vortex separated them. "I'll find a way back." He had promised. "I always do." But something told him this time was different. The void he'd fallen through wasn't like any jutsu he'd encountered before. It had torn him apart and reassembled him somewhere else. Naruto clawed his way back to consciousness, fighting through layers of pain and disorientation. He opened his eyes to find himself in a stone cell, wrists still bound with strange chains that made his chakra feel sluggish and distant. A single torch illuminated the prison, casting long shadows across the walls. "Kurama," he called mentally to his companion. "I'm here, but barely. These restraints, they're unlike anything we've encountered. They don't just suppress chakra, they seem specifically designed to weaken creatures like me." "Where are we?" Naruto asked, testing his bonds. Despite his weakened state, he could break free if necessary, but caution seemed wisest for now. "Not our world," Kurama growled. "The energy here is different. I can sense it even through these bindings. Whatever Kagaya's portal did, it didn't just transport us through space. Another dimension entirely." Naruto muttered aloud, remembering Kagaya's ability to travel between realms. "You speak our language," a voice observed from beyond the cell bars. Naruto's head snapped up. A woman stood watching him, older than those who had captured him, with gray hair ed in a bun and an expression of curious suspicion rather than outright hostility. "Why wouldn't I?" he asked, genuinely confused. The woman regarded him thoughtfully. "Most outsiders who wash upon our shores speak different tongues. Yet you speak as if born here." She stepped closer to the bars. "I am Elder Nyan, former Empress of Amazon Lily." Naruto straightened as much as his injuries allowed. "Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of Konoha." Konoha. Elder Nyan tested the unfamiliar word. "I know of no such place among the Four Blues, Grand Line, or New World." "Because it's not from your world," Naruto replied simply. Deciding honesty might serve him better than deception. "I was fighting to protect my friends when something happened. A dimensional rift. I fell through and ended up on your beach." The elder's eyes widened slightly, but she showed remarkable composure for someone hearing such an outlandish claim. "Many strange things occur on the Grand Line, but visitors from other worlds." She shook her head. "The current Empress will want to judge your claims herself." As if summoned by her words, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor, many footsteps, accompanied by the jingling of bells and murmurs of reverence. Elder Nyan immediately straightened, her demeanor shifting subtly. "It seems your audience comes sooner than expected," she said, stepping aside. The procession that entered the prison corridor was unlike anything Naruto had seen before. Beautiful women in elaborate outfits formed an honor guard, their faces masks of adoration as they gazed at the figure in their midst. Snake-headed staffs tapped rhythmically against stone, creating an almost hypnotic cadence. And then she appeared. Even in his weakened state, Naruto felt his breath catch. The woman who stopped before his cell was tall and impossibly beautiful, with long black hair that cascaded down her back like liquid midnight. She wore a revealing red dress that accentuated her figure, gold accents glinting in the torchlight. But what struck him most was the imperious tilt of her chin, the cold calculation in her eyes as she regarded him. This was no ordinary ruler, this was one who commanded absolute power and knew it. "Empress Hancock," Elder Nyan addressed her with respect tinged with familiarity. "This is the man found on our beach." Hancock's gaze swept over Naruto, assessing every detail with cool detachment. "A man on Amazon Lily," she said, her voice melodic yet sharp. "The law is clear. No man may set foot on our sacred island and live. I didn't exactly choose to wash up here," Naruto pointed out, meeting her gaze without flinching. "And I'd be happy to leave as soon as I figure out where here is exactly." A ripple of shock went through the attendants at his casual address. One stepped forward, outrage clear on her face. "You will show proper respect to the Snake Princess." Hancock raised a hand, silencing her follower instantly. Her expression had shifted from cool assessment to mild intrigue. "You do not cower," she observed. "Most men cannot even look me in the eye." Naruto shrugged, wincing as the movement pulled at his half-healed wounds. "I've met plenty of beautiful women before. I've also met plenty of powerful leaders. Being both doesn't change the fact that we're just talking." For a split second, something like surprise flick read across Hancock's perfect features before her mask of indifference returned. She stepped closer to the bars, looking down at him from her considerable height. "Perhaps you do not understand your situation," she said, her voice lowering dangerously. "I am Boa Hancock, Empress of Amazon Lily, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and possessor of the Mero Mero no Mi powers." She leaned forward. Quote, "Any man who looks upon me with desire turns to stone." As if to demonstrate, her body shifted into a pose of extraordinary grace, one hand framing her face as she looked at Naruto with half-lidded eyes. The attendants sighed collectively, several swooning at the display. Even Elder Nyan averted her gaze slightly. Naruto just blinked. "Is something supposed to happen?" A heartbeat of silence followed his words. Hancock's expression froze, her perfect composure cracking for the first time. She straightened, eyes narrowing. "Impossible," she whispered, then repeated the pose with greater intensity, focusing directly on him. Naruto felt a strange wave of energy wash over him, similar to genjutsu but fundamentally different. Kurama's chakra pulsed within him, naturally counteracting whatever force she projected. He remained flesh and blood, completely unaffected. "Sorry," he said, genuinely apologetic at what seemed to be causing her distress. Maybe it's because I'm not from this world. Or maybe these chains are blocking it. He rattled the sea stone cuffs hopefully. Hancock's expression darkened. With a gesture so swift Naruto almost missed it, she lashed out with her leg in a devastating kick that bent the iron bars of his cell. Outside, she commanded her attendants. Leave us. For a moment, they hesitated, clearly concerned by this unprecedented development. But one cold look from their empress sent them scurrying away, Elder Nyan lingering momentarily before following. When they were alone, Hancock stepped through the bent bars into Naruto's cell, her movements graceful despite her obvious agitation. What are you? She demanded, kneeling to his eye level with none of her earlier aloof demeanor. No man has ever resisted my powers. Not one in all my years. Naruto met her gaze directly. This close, he could see the flecks of silver in her blue eyes, could sense the genuine confusion behind her imperious facade. I told you, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, a shinobi from another world. I have a tailed beast sealed inside me who helps filter foreign energies. He glanced down at his stomach where Kurama's seal glowed faintly beneath his tattered clothes. Whatever your power is, it's probably being neutralized by his chakra. Chakra. Hancock repeated the unfamiliar term. Is that like hockey? I don't know what hockey is, Naruto admitted. But chakra is the energy that flows through every living thing where I come from. We shinobi learn to harness it for various techniques. Hancock's eyes dropped to his abdomen, where the seal pulsed visibly now. Without asking permission, she reached out and placed her hand against it, fingers tracing the intricate pattern. Naruto tensed at the unexpected contact but allowed it. Her touch was cool against his feverish skin. I sense something powerful within you, she said, her voice losing some of its edge. Something ancient and predatory. She withdrew her hand abruptly, as if realizing the impropriety of her actions. But that doesn't explain why my Mero fruit powers failed. Naruto thought for a moment. Maybe it's not just Kurama. Where I come from, we develop resistance to illusions and mental manipulation. It's basic training. My powers are not illusions, Hancock corrected sharply. The Mero no Mi turns desires into stone. Those who lust after me are petrified. A flicker of something dark and wounded crossed her expression. All men desire me. All men reveal their true nature in my presence. The bitterness in her voice told Naruto more than her words. He'd heard similar tones from Sasuke when speaking of his clan's massacre. From Gaara when recounting his lonely childhood. This was old pain, deep pain. I think you're beautiful, Naruto said honestly, but I don't reduce people to their appearances. Where I come from, I was shunned and feared for years because of what's sealed inside me. He tapped his abdomen. I learned to look deeper. Hancock stared at him, her perfect features unreadable. Then, with a sudden, fluid movement, she reached for the key at her waist and unlocked his sea stone cuffs. If you truly possess the power you claim, prove it, she challenged. Show me this chakra from another world. The moment the cuffs fell away, Naruto felt Kurama's energy surge through him, healing his remaining wounds at an accelerated rate. He took a deep breath, centering himself before holding out his hand. With practiced ease, he formed a Rasengan, not his largest or most impressive, but enough to illuminate the dim cell with swirling blue energy. Hancock's eyes widened, her lips parting in genuine surprise as she watched the spiraling sphere of chakra hover above his palm. This is a basic technique, Naruto explained, letting the Rasengan dissipate. I have many others, including those I can use with Kurama's help. Kurama, the nine-tailed fox sealed within me, Naruto explained, feeling the fox's amusement at being discussed so openly. We're partners now, though it wasn't always that way. Hancock stood abruptly, her regal demeanor returning. You will come with me, she declared, not a request but a command. If you truly are from another world with powers unknown to us. The council must hear of this. As Naruto rose to his feet, he noticed how she subtly shifted her stance, ready to attack if he made any threatening move. Despite her outward composure, she didn't trust him. Not yet. Lead the way, Snake Princess, he said with a slight bow that was both respectful and gently teasing. A flicker of something, annoyance, amusement, crossed her face before she turned and strode from the cell, clearly expecting him to follow. As they emerged from the prison into blinding tropical sunlight, Naruto got his first proper look at Amazon Lily. Her architecture was unlike anything in the 5 great nations, a blend of ancient stone structures and natural elements that worked with rather than against the jungle environment. Women of all ages stopped their activities to stare as Hancock led him through the village, whispers following in their wake. A man walking freely, the Empress herself escorts him. Did you see? He's not turned to stone. Hancock ignored the murmurs, her head held high as she led Naruto toward a massive structure that dominated the island's skyline, a palace carved into a mountainside, adorned with snake motifs and vibrant tropical flowers. Your home? Naruto asked, attempting conversation. The sacred palace of the Kuja tribe, she replied without looking back. No man has ever been permitted inside. I'm honored then, he said sincerely. And I promise not to make you regret breaking tradition. Something in his tone made her glance back, those piercing blue eyes studying him with renewed interest. Whatever she saw in his expression seemed to satisfy her, and she continued her purposeful stride toward the palace. As they approached the grand entrance, 2 women who bore a striking resemblance to Hancock stepped forward, one tall with short green hair styled in a sideways braid, the other slightly shorter with orange hair in 2 braided pigtails. Both wore expressions of shock at the sight of Naruto walking freely alongside their empress. Sister, the green-haired one exclaimed. What is the meaning of this? Why is this man not in chains, or stone? Marigold, Sandersonia, Hancock acknowledged them with a slight nod. This is Naruto Uzumaki. He claims to be from another world entirely, and his powers. She paused, choosing her words carefully. His abilities require further investigation. Another world, the orange-haired woman, Sandersonia, repeated skeptically. Sister, surely you don't believe such nonsense. I have seen enough to warrant a full council hearing, Hancock replied firmly. Gather the elders and warriors. And send for Elder Nyan as well. The sisters exchanged concerned glances but nodded in unison, hurrying inside to carry out her orders. As they disappeared into the palace, Hancock turned to Naruto. My sisters are protective, she explained, a hint of warmth softening her voice for the first time. The 3 of us have experiences that make us cautious around men. Family looking out for each other, Naruto nodded, a pang of something like homesickness striking him as he thought of his own found family back in Konoha. I understand that better than most. For a moment, something like curiosity flickered in Hancock's eyes, a question unasked, but she simply gestured for him to follow her inside. The palace interior was a marvel of craftsmanship and natural beauty. Sunlight filtered through cleverly positioned skylights, illuminating intricate mosaics depicting warrior women and giant serpents. Water features created a pleasant ambient as they passed through corridors lined with tropical plants and elegant statuary. Eventually, they reached what appeared to be a council chamber, a circular room with tiered seating surrounding a central floor. Already, women were filing in, taking their places according to what seemed to be a strict hierarchy. The sisters, Marigold and Sandersonia, flanked what was clearly Hancock's throne at the highest point of the chamber. Wait here, Hancock instructed, pointing to the center of the floor. Speak only when addressed, and remember, while I have granted you temporary reprieve from our laws regarding men, one wrong move will find you facing the combined might of Amazon Lily's finest warriors. Naruto nodded, taking his position in the center of the chamber as Hancock ascended to her throne with elegant grace. He could feel dozens of curious, suspicious, and even hostile gazes fixed upon him from every direction. They're scared, Kurama observed within him. Not of you specifically, but of what you represent, change. The unknown, a threat to their isolation. I've dealt with worse receptions, Naruto replied mentally, remembering how the villagers of Konoha had once looked at him with far more hatred than these women showed. At least here, the animosity wasn't personal. When everyone had settled, Hancock raised a hand, and immediate silence fell over the chamber. Warriors and elders of Amazon Lily, she began, her voice carrying effortlessly throughout the space. Today, our sacred traditions face an unprecedented situation. This man, Naruto Uzumaki, was found washed ashore on our beach. Grievously wounded but alive, when brought before me for judgment. She paused, and Naruto could sense her reluctance to admit the next part. He proved immune to my Mero powers. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber, followed by urgent whispers. Hancock allowed the commotion to continue for a moment before raising her hand again for silence. Furthermore, he claims to be from another world entirely, possessing powers unknown to us. Powers I have witnessed firsthand. Elder Nyan stepped forward from her position among the elders. Empress, while I've heard many tales in my long years, never have I encountered a claim of other worlds. Yet, she glanced at Naruto with shrewd eyes. There are ancient texts speaking of the Void Century that hint at realms beyond our understanding. The world government would kill to obtain such power, a warrior woman added, her expression grim. Which is precisely why this matter must remain within these walls, Hancock declared. If word reached Marine headquarters or, worse, the Celestial Dragons. A visible shudder passed through the three sisters at the mention of these celestial dragons, a reaction Naruto filed away for later consideration. Naruto Uzumaki, Hancock addressed him directly. You stand before the Council of Amazon Lily. Demonstrate your claim of otherworldly powers so all may witness. All eyes turned to Naruto expectantly. He took a deep breath, centering himself. Where I come from, we harness an energy called chakra, he began, keeping his explanation simple. It allows us to perform techniques that might seem like magic to you. He formed a hand sign, and instantly created 3 shadow clones beside him. The council erupted in shocked exclamations as 3 perfect copies of Naruto stood in the chamber. Each as solid and real as the original. These aren't illusions, he explained as his clones moved independently, walking among the stunned council members. They're physical duplicates that can act and think independently. One clone approached Elder Nyan, respectfully bowing before offering his hand. The elder cautiously reached out, her eyes widening when she made contact with solid flesh. Remarkable, she murmured. Not even the most powerful Paramesha devil fruits create true duplicates with independent consciousness. Devil fruits? Naruto questioned. Misty, Cal fruits that grant powers to those who eat them at the cost of their ability to swim, Hancock explained. My Mero no Mi is one such fruit, as are the Hubby no Mi models my sisters possess. Naruto dispelled his clones, earning another round of gasps as they disappeared in small puffs of smoke. That's just one basic technique. I have many others. To demonstrate, he performed a quick series of hand signs before taking a deep breath. Water style. Water bullet jutsu. A concentrated jet of water shot from his mouth, striking a decorative fountain and causing water to spray upward in a controlled display. He creates water without a devil fruit. Someone exclaimed. And did you see those hand movements? Like a complex form of spell casting. Naruto looked to Hancock, whose expression had shifted from skepticism to genuine interest. I can control different elements, create various techniques, and with Kurama's help, the being sealed inside me, I can access even more powerful abilities. This Kurama, Marigold spoke up from beside her sister's throne. You speak of it as a separate entity, yet claim it resides within you. Naruto nodded. Where I come from, there are 9-tailed beasts, immensely powerful chakra entities. Kurama, the 9-tailed fox, was sealed inside me when I was a baby. He lifted his tattered shirt, revealing the seal on his abdomen, now glowing FAI. NTLY orange as Kurama's chakra responded to being discussed. We're partners now, sharing power and consciousness when needed. A demon, Sandersonia suggested, looking uneasy. Not a demon, Naruto corrected firmly. A being of chakra with thoughts, feelings, and wisdom accumulated over centuries. He's as much a person as any of us. Well, that's unexpectedly flattering, Kurama grumbled within him. Though Naruto could sense the fox's pleasure at the description. The council fell into intense discussion, members debating amongst themselves about the implications of Naruto's abilities and origin. Hancock remained silent, her calculating gaze fixed on him as the debate swirled around her. Finally, she raised her hand once more, and silence immediately fell. Naruto Uzumaki presents us with both opportunity and risk, she declared. As a warlord of the sea, I am obligated to report significant threats to the world government. However, she paused, her eyes narrowing slightly. What T? Hey, to not know cannot harm our autonomy. Elder Nyan nodded approvingly. Wise, Empress. The fewer who know of his existence, the safer for both him and Amazon Lily. Then it is decided. Hancock rose to her feet. Her decision apparently made. Naruto Uzumaki will remain on Amazon Lily under my personal supervision while we determine if his presence poses a threat to our people. He will be granted restricted movement within designated areas only, accompanied at all times by appointed guards. Naruto opened his mouth to object to essentially being a prisoner, but Hancock continued before he could speak. In return for our protection and secrecy, he will share knowledge of his world and abilities that might benefit our warriors. She fixed him with an imperious stare. Are these terms acceptable to you, man from another world? Naruto considered his options. He was stranded in an unfamiliar reality with no immediate way home. These women, while suspicious, hadn't executed him outright, despite their apparent laws against men on their island. And Hancock, despite her cold exterior, seemed to be offering him protection from whatever these, world government, and celestial dragons, represented. I accept, he said finally. But I want to add something. I'm not looking to stay permanently. My friends back home might think I'm dead, but I promised I'd find a way back if I survived. I need to at least try to find a way to return to my world. Hancock studied him for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in her eyes. Your loyalty to your people is noted. If information about traversing between worlds exists, our scholars will assist in locating it, provided such research doesn't endanger Amazon Lily. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best offer he was likely to get. Naruto nodded his agreement. Then our council is concluded, Hancock announced. Appoint his guards and prepare suitable accommodations. He is not to be harmed unless he violates our terms. Her gaze swept the chamber. And let it be known that any discussion of our guest outside these walls is forbidden under penalty of exile. As the council dispersed, Hancock descended from her throne, her sisters falling into step behind her as she approached Naruto. You will be given clean clothes and food, she informed him, her tone businesslike. A healer will attend to any remaining injuries. Tomorrow, we will begin a more thorough assessment of your abilities. Thank you, Naruto said sincerely. I know accepting a stranger, a man, goes against everything you stand for here. I appreciate the chance to prove I'm not a threat. Something almost like surprise flickered across Hancock's perfect features before her mask of indifference returned. Do not mistake pragmatism for trust, Naruto Uzumaki. You remain alive because your abilities may prove useful and because killing you might attract unwanted attention from powers that monitor significant energy disturbances. With that, she turned and swept from the chamber. Her sisters following after, shooting Naruto warning glances. Elder Nyan approached as they departed. Do not take her coldness personally, the old woman advised. Hancock's past has given her ample reason to distrust men. The fact that you stand here, breathing and unpetrified, is remarkable progress. What happened to her? Naruto asked quietly. Elder Nyan's expression darkened. That is her story to tell or keep. But know this, on Amazon Lily, men are forbidden because experience has taught us they bring only pain and subjugation. You are the first exception in generations. Prove yourself worthy of that distinction. Before Naruto could respond, a group of warrior women approached, clearly his assigned guards. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to outright hostility. This way, the leader instructed curtly. Empress Hancock has ordered quarters prepared in the eastern wing. As they led him through the palace corridors, Naruto couldn't help but feel the weight of their isolation and distrust. Whatever had happened to make this island of warriors ban all men must have been traumatic indeed. And yet, despite their suspicion, they had shown more RCY than many in his world might have toward an unknown intruder with strange powers. You're thinking of making friends already, aren't you? Kurama's amused voice echoed in his mind. It's worked for me before. Naruto replied with inner optimism. Even with you, furball. Kurama's rumbling laughter was oddly comforting as Naruto followed his guards deeper into the palace of Amazon Lily, wondering what tomorrow would bring in this strange new world. The eastern wing of the palace proved to be a series of rooms overlooking a lush garden courtyard. Naruto's assigned quarters were spacious if spartanly furnished, a bed, a simple table with chairs, washing facilities behind a screen, and large windows that allowed the tropical breeze to filter through reed blinds. You will remain here until morning. His lead guard informed him. Food will be brought shortly. Attempt to leave, and we are authorized to use force. I understand, Naruto assured her. I gave my word to your empress, and I don't go back on my promises. That's my ninja way. The woman regarded him with skepticism but nodded curtly before positioning herself and one other guard outside his door. The remaining two took positions beneath his windows in the garden below. Once alone, Naruto sank onto the bed, the events of the day finally catching up to him. His body, while mostly healed thanks to Kurama, still ached from the dimensional transition and near drowning. What do you make of all this, Kurama? He asked aloud, knowing the fox could hear him whether he spoke mentally or verbally. This world is strange, Kurama responded. The energy here feels different, not chakra as we know it, but something similar yet distinct. These devil fruits they mentioned seem to be this world's equivalent of Kekkei Genkai, but accessible to anyone who consumes them. At the cost of never swimming again, Naruto mused. Seems like a steep price in a world that appears to be mostly ocean. The woman, Hancock, her power is particularly interesting. Kurama continued. It seems to work on a principle similar to genjutsu, affecting the mind through desire, but manifesting physical changes in the victim's body. And you naturally counteracted it. My chakra has always protected you from mental influences. But there's something else. Kurama seemed hesitant. The transition between dimensions may have altered our chakra network slightly. I'm still assessing the changes, but we may discover new limitations, or capabilities, as we adapt to this world. That was concerning. Naruto had relied on his abilities remaining consistent throughout his life as a shinobi. The thought that the very fundamentals of his power might be changing was unsettling. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. A young woman entered carrying a tray laden with food, unfamiliar fruits, what appeared to be seafood, and a steaming bowl of rice. She set it down without meeting his eyes and hurried out, clearly uncomfortable in his presence. The food, despite its unfamiliarity, smelled delicious. Naruto realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten, before the final battle with Kagaya. That felt like a lifetime ago now. As he ate, he gazed out at the tropical paradise beyond his windows. Amazon Lily was undeniably beautiful, with its lush vegetation and pristine beaches. Under different circumstances, he might have appreciated the chance to explore such an exotic place. But all he could think of was Konoha, Kakashi, Sakura, Sasuke, and all his friends who probably thought him dead. We will find a way back, Kurama assured him, sensing his melancholy. We always do. Yeah, Naruto agreed, though with less certainty than he would have liked. We always do. After finishing his meal, Naruto performed a series of stretches to assess his body's condition. Satisfied that he had recovered enough for basic training, he created a shadow clone. Let's see if our chakra control has been affected, he suggested to his duplicate. Together, they attempted to form a Rasengan, focusing chakra between their palms. The familiar swirling sphere appeared, but Naruto immediately noticed subtle differences. The chakra say made to interact differently with the air of this world, creating faint rainbow refractions within the spiraling energy. Definitely not the same, his clone observed as they dissipated the technique. It feels wilder somehow. Naruto nodded in agreement. We'll need to test everything gradually, re-establish our limits. A commotion outside interrupted their practice. His guards' voices rose in deference, and Naruto quickly dispelled his clone just as the door opened without warning. Hancock stood in the doorway, having changed from her formal attire into a more casual yet still elegant robe of deep purple silk. She regarded him with surprise, clearly not expecting to find him awake and alert. Empress, Naruto acknowledged with a respectful nod. Is everything all right? She entered the room, dismissing the guards with a gesture. They seemed reluctant to leave her alone with him but obeyed without question, closing the door behind them. I came to ensure you were properly accommodated, she said. Though her tone suggested this wasn't her only reason. Her gaze swept the room, noting the empty food tray and the slight disturbance in the air where his Rasengan had been moments before. You were practicing your abilities. It wasn't a question, but Naruto nodded anyway. I need to understand how they've been affected by crossing dimensions. Some things feel different here. Different how? She asked, genuine curiosity breaking through her aloof demeanor. The energy of this world interacts differently with my chakra, Naruto explained, holding out his hand and forming a small, imperfect Rasengan to demonstrate. The swirling sphere wavered slightly, rainbow hues dancing through it in a way they never had in his world. See how it refracts light differently. And it's less stable. Hancock stepped closer, studying the technique with unexpected interest. It resembles certain aspects of advanced armament hockey, yet clearly functions on different principles. What exactly is hockey? Naruto asked, dispelling the Rasengan. You mentioned it earlier. Hancock considered him for a moment, apparently deciding how much to reveal. Hockey is a power that lies dormant in all creatures, she finally explained. A manifestation of will or spirit. There are 3 types. Observation hockey allows one to sense others and predict their movements. Armament hockey hardens the body, or weapons against attack, and allows one to strike logias. And conqueror's hockey. A hint of pride entered her voice. A rare form possessed by only 1 in a million, allowing the user to overwhelm the will of others. And you have this rare form? Naruto guessed. A slight smile curved her lips. All 3 Gorgon sisters possess it. It is part of what makes the Kuja warriors so formidable, despite our small numbers. Naruto nodded thoughtfully. It sounds similar to certain aspects of chakra control and sensory abilities in my world, though with different applications. Your world? Hancock repeated, studying him intently. Tell me of it. What manner of place produces men who can resist a power that has felled emperors and admirals alike? There was something in her question, a genuine curiosity beneath the imperial demand, that prompted Naruto to answer honestly. My world is divided into nations, most centered around hidden villages of shinobi, ninja warriors who train from childhood to master chakra techniques. I'm from Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves, in the land of fire. A pang of homesickness struck him as he spoke of Konoha. We've had our share of wars and conflicts, just like your world seems to have. But we were finally approaching peace when. He trailed off, memories of the 4th Great Ninja War and Kagaya's emergence still raw. When? Hancock prompted, unexpectedly gentle. When an ancient being threatened to enslave everyone, Naruto finished. My friends and I were fighting her when her dimensional portal collapsed. I pushed them to safety but got caught in the collapse myself. Next thing I knew, I was drowning in your ocean. Hancock was silent for a long moment, her expression unreadable. You sacrificed yourself for your comrades, she finally stated. Not a question but an observation. They'd have done the same for me, Naruto said with absolute certainty. Something shifted in Hancock's eyes, a reassessment. Such loyalty is uncommon in men of our world. Before Naruto could respond, a distant alarm bell rang out across the island. Hancock's head snapped toward the sound, her body instantly tensing. What is it? Naruto asked, already on his feet. Sea King, she replied tersely. A large one, approaching the eastern shore. She moved toward the door, then paused, seeming to make a decision. Come, if you truly wish to. Prove yourself not a threat to Amazon Lily, now is your opportunity. Without waiting for his response, she strode from the room. Naruto quickly followed, ignoring the shocked expressions of his RDS as he fell into step behind the Empress. They moved swiftly through the palace and down toward the eastern shore, where women were already gathering with weapons ready. In the distance, the CCH earned violently as something massive approached, a serpentine form easily the size of the largest summons Naruto had ever seen. It's heading straight for the village. Someone called out. The younger warriors are still training on the beach. Another voice cried. Hancock's pace quickened, genuine concern breaking through her composed facade. As they reached the edge of the tree line, Naruto could see a group of young women, barely more than girls, practicing combat formations on the beach, unaware of the danger rapidly approaching from behind them. There's no time, Hancock said, already shifting into a battle stance. My sisters are on the far side of the island with most of our experienced warriors. Without hesitation, Naruto stepped forward. Let me handle this. Hancock's eyes narrowed. This is not some small threat. Outsider. That Sea King is large enough to swallow our ship's whole. Trust me, Naruto said simply, meeting her gaze. I've faced bigger. Something in his confidence must have convinced her. For after a moment's consideration, she nodded sharply. Very well, show us what a shinobi from another world can do. Naruto wasted no time. He sprinted toward the beach, chakra enhancing his speed to a blur that left the Amazon warriors gasping in surprise. As he reached the shoreline, he assessed the situation quickly. The Sea King was indeed massive, a serpentine creature with razor teeth and multiple fins, bearing down on the oblivious young warriors with frightening speed. Everyone get back, he shouted to the girls, who turned in shock at the male voice. When they saw the approaching monster, they began to retreat, but Naruto knew they wouldn't all make it in time. Kurama, lend me your chakra. Take what you need, Kit. Let's show these women what we're capable of. Golden energy erupted around Naruto's body, his appearance shifting into the familiar chakra cloak that had become his signature during the war. 9 glowing tails manifested behind him, swaying with barely contained power as his whisker marks deepened and his eyes shifted to burning orange-red. Gasps and cries of alarm rose from the watching Amazons, but Naruto was already moving. With a single leap, he crossed the distance to the water, landing on its surface as easily as solid ground. The Sea King, sensing a new threat, roared and lunged toward him instead of the retreating girls. Naruto formed a familiar cross sign with his fingers. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of golden cloaked Narutos appeared across the water's surface, each radiating the same intense chakra. The Sea King hesitated momentarily, confused by the sudden multiplication of its prey. That moment of hesitation was all Naruto needed. His clones moved in perfect coordination, some leaping high to distribution. Act the creature while others began forming massive Rasengans between them. On the beach, Hancock watched with undisguised amazement as the golden-cloaked figures danced across the water's surface, coordinating their movements with a precision her finest warriors would envy. What manner of power is this? Elder Nyan murmured beside her, having arrived to witness the spectacle. Something beyond our world's understanding, Hancock replied, her eyes never leaving Naruto's glowing form. The Sea King, recovering from its initial confusion, lashed out with its massive tail, dispersing several clones in puffs of smoke. It then dove beneath the surface, creating a massive swell that threatened to wash away the remaining clones. But Naruto was ready. The original and his remaining clones leapt high into the air, combining their power into a technique he'd perfected during the war. Sage art. Massive Rasen Shuriken. He called out, the massive spinning disk of chakra forming above his palm, infused with both his and Kurama's chakra. With perfect timing, he hurled the technique downward just as the Sea King resurfaced to attack. The Rasen Shuriken struck the creature directly between its eyes, expanding upon impact into a devastating vortex of wind and chakra that engulfed the monster's entire head. The Sea King's roar of pain was cut short as the technique did its work, severing its connection to its life force on a cellular level. When the light from the attack faded, the massive creature slowly sank beneath the waves, defeated. Naruto dispelled his remaining clones and landed gracefully back on the beach, his chakra cloak fading as he turned to face the stunned Amazon warriors. For a moment, absolute silence reigned as they stared at him with expressions ranging from awe to fear to disbelief. Then, unexpectedly, the young warriors he'd protected began to cheer. Their cries were soon joined by others along the shore, the sound spreading as word of what had happened traveled rapidly through the gathering crowd. Hancock approached him slowly, her usual composure momentarily abandoned as she regarded him with new eyes. You defeated a Grand Line Sea King, she stated, alone and without apparent effort. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, a habitual gesture when embarrassed. Well, not entirely alone. Kurama helped, and the clones. Nevertheless, Elder Nyan interjected. What you accomplished would have required a coordinated effort from our finest warriors, possibly with casualties. The young trainees had gathered nearby, watching him with undisguised curiosity and excitement. One small girl, barely a teenager, stepped forward hesitantly. How did you stand on the water? She asked, voice filled with wonder. Naruto smiled, kneeling to her level. In my world, it's a basic technique called water walking. We focus chakra at the soles of our feet to create surface tension strong enough to support our weight. Could we learn to do that? Another young warrior asked hopefully. Before Naruto could respond, Hancock stepped between them. That is enough questions for now. All of you, return to your training areas immediately. Her tone brooked no argument. And the girls quickly dispersed, though not without backward glances at Naruto. When they were gone, Hancock turned to him, her expression complicated. You saved them without hesitation, she observed. Why? The question caught Naruto off guard. They were in danger. Why wouldn't I help? They are not your people. Amazon Lily has given you no cause for loyalty. Naruto shook his head. That doesn't matter. Where I come from, those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. And anyone who needs help is a potential comrade. Something shifted in Hancock's expression, a softening. Almost imperceptible but definitely there. A strange philosophy for a warrior of your capability. It's served me well so far, Naruto replied with a slight smile. Even helped me make friends with a grumpy fox demon who used to want me dead. I can still hear you, you know, Kurama grumbled, though Naruto could sense the fox's amusement. Elder Nyan cleared her throat. Perhaps, Empress, in light of today's events, our guest's status might be reconsidered. He has demonstrated both power and, more importantly, the judgment to use it in our defense. Hancock was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on Naruto with an intensity that might have made a lesser man uncomfortable. Finally, she inclined her head slightly. Naruto Uzumaki, she addressed him formally. Amazon Lily acknowledged. Jess, your actions in defense of our people. Your restricted status is lifted, though you will still be accompanied by a single guard when moving through the village. She paused, then added, and you'll begin training sessions with our warriors tomorrow, sharing these basic techniques you mentioned. It wasn't complete freedom, but it was significant progress. Naruto bowed respectfully. Thank you, Empress. I'm happy to share what I know. As they walked back toward the village, the setting sun casting long shadows across the beach, Naruto couldn't help but notice how the other women regarded him differently now. The fear and hostility had been replaced with cautious curiosity and, from something approaching respect. Hancock walked slightly ahead, her posture regal and composed once more. But occasionally, when she thought no one was looking, she cast glances back at him, thoughtful, assessing glances that suggested she was reevaluating everything she thought she knew about men from other worlds. You've made an impression, Kurama observed. Though whether that's good or bad remains to be seen. I'll take it as progress, Naruto replied optimistically. One step closer to finding allies in this world. And maybe eventually a way home. As the palace came into view, glowing golden in the sunset, Naruto allowed himself a moment of hope. He was alive, his abilities still worked, if somewhat differently. And he'd begun to earn the trust of at least some of the inhabitants of this strange island. It wasn't Konoha, but for now, it would have to do. And tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and perhaps new allies in his quest to find a way back to the world he'd left behind. The moon hung full and bright over Amazon Lily, bathing the island in silver light. In her private chambers, Hancock stood at the balcony, her thoughts as turbulent as the sea below. The events of the day played through her mind repeatedly, the stranger from another world, immune to her powers. Wielding abilities beyond anything she'd witnessed in her travels across the Grand Line. A soft knock at her door interrupted her contemplation. Enter, she called, not turning from the view. Elder Nyan's familiar shuffling gait approached. You seem troubled, Empress. Hancock didn't immediately respond, her gaze fixed on the eastern shore where Naruto had demonstrated his power hours earlier. He is unlike any man I've encountered, she finally said, her voice unusually pensive. Not just his abilities, but his nature. He shows neither fear of your power nor the lustful entitlement most men display. Elder Nyan observed. It unsettles you. Hancock turned, her perfect features arranged in a mask of indignation. I am not unsettled. I am cautious. His presence represents an unknown variable in our carefully maintained isolation. Elder Nyan's knowing smile suggested she saw through the pretense. Of course, Empress. Mere caution explains why you've been standing here for hours, staring at the spot where he defeated a Sea King single-handedly. A faint flush colored Hancock's cheeks, quickly suppressed. Do not mistake strategic consideration for personal interest, Elder. His immunity to my powers makes him dangerous, potentially the most dangerous man to ever set foot on our shores. Or the most valuable ally, Elder Nyan countered. The world government grows more oppressive by the year. Your position as warlord protects us for now, but should they discover your continued harboring of escaped slaves? They won't, Hancock said sharply. Quote, no outsider has penetrated our defenses in years. Until today, the elder reminded her gently. If one man can wash ashore from another world entirely, who's to say what else might breach our isolation in the future? Hancock turned back to the moonlit view, her expression troubled. What would you have me do? Trust this stranger because he smiled at our children and slew a beast that threatened them? I've seen kindness used as a weapon before, Elder. I would have you consider possibilities beyond immediate threat or asset, Nyan replied. Consider that not all men are like those who enslaved us. Consider that someone who sacrificed himself for his comrades, as he claims to have done, might operate by a different code than those we've encountered before. You speak of him almost admiringly, Hancock observed, a note of accusation in her voice. Elder Nyan shrugged, unperturbed. I admire strength tempered by compassion, regardless of its vessel. But more importantly, I recognize an opportunity when I see one. This Naruto possesses knowledge and abilities entirely foreign to our world. If even a fraction of what he demonstrated today can be taught to our warriors. You believe his claims of being able to teach these techniques. I believe it warrants investigation, the elder replied diplomatically. And I believe you are curious enough to pursue that investigation personally. Despite your protestations of mere strategic consideration. Hancock's lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't deny the observation. After a moment, she sighed softly. Have the training grounds prepared for tomorrow morning. I will evaluate his abilities as an instructor myself. Elder Nyan bowed, hiding a satisfied smile. As you wish, Empress. She turned to leave but paused at the doorway. And perhaps consider approaching this exercise with an open mind. Not as Boa Hancock, the woman who despises all men, but as the Empress of Amazon Lily, responsible for her people's continued survival in an increasingly dangerous world. When the elder had gone, Hancock remained at the balcony, her thoughts drifting to the strange blue eyes that had looked at her without a trace of desire or fear she was accustomed to seeing. Eyes that had shown concern for strangers not because they were beautiful women but simply because they were people in danger. An open mind, she murmured to herself. The concept almost foreign after years of justified hatred. We shall see what tomorrow brings, Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf. In the guest quarters of the Eastern Wing, Naruto sat cross-legged on the floor. Deep in meditation, within his mindscape, he communed with Kurama, the two of them working to understand the subtle changes in their shared chakra network. The fundamental nature of our power remains intact, Kurama observed, but its interaction with this world's energy creates both limitations and new possibilities. Your nature transformation techniques require more precise control, but your shadow clones manifest with greater independence. And your chakra? Naruto asked, concerned for his partner. Adapting, the fox replied. This world's natural energy is different, wilder, less structured than the sage chakra you're accustomed to harnessing. It might explain why my healing factor worked slower when we first arrived. Do you think we'll be able to get home? Naruto asked the question that had weighed on him since regaining consciousness on the beach. Kurama was silent for a long moment. I don't know, Kit. Dimensional travel isn't something even I fully understand. Kagaya possessed that power naturally as an Otsutsuki. We might need to find this world's equivalent of such power. These devil fruits they mentioned. They grant abilities beyond normal human capacity. Maybe there's one that could help us. Perhaps, Kurama acknowledged. But from what little we've learned, they seem more limited in scope than the abilities of the Otsutsuki clan. Still, it's a direction worth exploring. Their communion was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Naruto opened his eyes, returning to full awareness of his surroundings. Come in, he called. To his surprise, it wasn't a guard or servant who entered, but Hancock's sister, Sandersonia, the one with orange hair and pigtails. She carried a bundle of clothing and regarded him with obvious wariness despite her errand. Empress Hancock has ordered proper attire for tomorrow's training session, she explained, setting the bundle on the table. These should fit you. Thank you, Naruto said sincerely. And please thank your sister for me as well. Sandersonia studied him curiously. You truly feel no effect from her marrow powers. No desire that might turn to stone. The question seemed deeply personal. But Naruto understood its importance to them. I find your sister beautiful, he answered honestly, but where I come from, we're trained to control our emotions and impulses from childhood. And Kurama's chakra naturally counters external influences on my mind. This creature within you, Sandersonia pressed, is it truly as powerful as what you demonstrated today? Naruto smiled slightly. Kurama is far more powerful than what you saw. At full strength, working together, we've split mountains and fought beings who could destroy entire nations. Sandersonia's eyes widened fractionally. Then why do you agree to be our guest? Our prisoner, essentially, when you could likely leave whenever you wished. It was an insightful question, one that revealed Sandersonia was more PTIVE than her initially hostile demeanor might suggest. Because I respect your sovereignty, Naruto replied simply. This is your home, your island. I washed up here uninvited. Where I come from, we believe in building bridges, not burning them. Besides, he added with a slight smile, I have nowhere else to go in this world. I might as well start making friends rather than enemies. Friends. Sandersonia repeated the word as if testing an unfamiliar concept. You believe men and women can be friends. Not master and slave, not predator and prey. The bitterness in her voice told Naruto more about Amazon Lily's isolation than any official explanation had. Where I come from, some of my closest friends and strongest allies are women. My teammate Sakura could shatter boulders with her fists. My friend Hinata had eyes that could see through solid objects and a fighting style that could disable opponents with a touch. My teacher's partner, Conan, could turn her body into paper and create wings that carried her across the sky. His expression softened with memory. They weren't defined by being women any more than I was defined by being a man. We were shinobi, comrades, friends. Sandersonia regarded him silently for a long moment. Your world sounds very different from ours. Not so different in some ways, Naruto countered. We've had our wars, our tyrants, our prejudices. But we've also had heroes who stood against darkness, bonds that transcended boundaries, and hope that survived even in the bleakest times. Something shifted in Sandersonia's expression, not quite softening, but a certain thoughtfulness replacing her automatic suspicion. Tomorrow's training will be challenging, she said finally, changing the subject. My sister does not accept failure or half measures, especially from an outsider claiming to have knowledge worth sharing. I wouldn't expect anything less, Naruto replied with a grin. I had some pretty demanding teachers myself. One used to make me run laps around the entire village if I couldn't master a technique by sunset. The faintest ghost of a smile touched Sandersonia's lips before she suppressed it. Rest well, then. You'll need your strength. She moved toward the door but paused with her hand on the handle. Thank you, she added quietly, for saving those girls today. Before Naruto could respond, she was gone, the door closing softly behind her. Alone again, he unfolded the clothes she'd brought. Loose-fitting pants similar to those worn by the island's warriors, a sleeveless tunic that would allow freedom of movement, and a light sash to bind them. The fabric was light but durable, suitable for combat training in the tropical climate. You're making progress, Kurama observed. The sister came to assess you personally, not just deliver clothes. They're protective of Hancock, Naruto noted. They've all experienced something traumatic involving men, that much is clear. This world seems to have its own dark histories, Kurama agreed. Not so different from ours after all. Naruto moved to the window, gazing out at the moonlit island. Somewhere in the palace, Hancock was likely contemplating his presence, weighing risks against potential benefits. Tomorrow would be a test, not just of his abilities as a teacher but of his character under pressure. One step at a time, he murmured to himself. That's how we've always done it. As he prepared for sleep, Naruto felt the familiar ache of homesickness, but alongside it grew a new determination. Whatever this world held, whatever challenges, enemies, or all IEs awaited, he would face them as he always had, with unwavering resolve and an open heart. Tomorrow would bring him one day closer to understanding this new reality. One day closer to finding a way home. And perhaps, One day closer to turning strangers into friends. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2, Hearts of Stone. Dawn broke over Amazon Lily in a wash of gold and crimson, the jungle canopy catching the first rays of sunlight as birds called to one another in a symphony of wild sounds. Naruto had been awake for hours, meditating on the balcony of his quarters as he attempted to harmonize his chakra with the unfamiliar energies of this world. Your control is improving, Kurama noted as Naruto opened his eyes. The chakra flows more naturally now. Still not quite right, Naruto replied, rising fluidly to his feet. Everything feels slippery somehow, like trying to mold wet clay instead of firm dough. He dressed in the clothes provided the night before, appreciating their lightweight durability. The sleeveless tunic and loose pants allowed for unrestricted movement while the fabric itself seemed designed to wick away moisture, perfect for the island's humid climate. A knock at his door announced the arrival of his guard, a tall woman with short-cropped silver hair who introduced herself as Kikyo. Unlike previous guards, she regarded him with curiosity rather than open hostility. The training grounds are prepared, she informed him. Empress Hancock awaits. The training grounds proved to be a large clearing surrounded by ancient trees, their massive roots creating natural terrace. Seating where dozens of Amazon warriors had already gathered. Some were clearly seasoned veterans, their bodies marked with the scars of battle, while others were young trainees, watching with undies. Guised excitement as Naruto entered the arena. Hancock stood in the center of the clearing, her usual elaborate attire replaced by a more practical outfit similar to what her warriors wore, though still elegant enough to befit her station. Her sisters flanked her, both regarding Naruto with guarded expressions. Naruto Uzumaki. Hancock addressed him formally, her voice carrying to all present. Why, oh, you claim your world's techniques can be taught to others. Today, you will demonstrate this claim. She gestured to a group of 12 warriors of varying ages. These volunteers have agreed to be your students. You have until midday to show results. The challenge was clear, prove his worth or lose what little trust he'd gained. Naruto stepped forward with confidence, bowing slightly to Hancock before returning to address the assembled warriors. Where I come from, we start training to use chakra as children, he began, his voice clear and steady. But the basics are simple enough. Chakra is energy. Why that exists within all living things, a combination of physical energy from every cell in your body and spiritual energy gained from exercise and experience. He created a shadow clone, earning gasps from the audience as an exact duplicate appeared beside him. My clone will work with half of you, while I take the other half. We'll start with the most fundamental exercise, learning to feel and direct your own internal energy. For the next hour, Naruto guided his students through basic meditation techniques designed to help them sense their own life force. To his surprise, the Amazon warriors proved exceptionally receptive. Several of the older ones quickly reported feeling warmth spreading through their limbs, the first sign of chakra awareness. They already have something similar to chakra control, Naruto's clone reported as they compared notes. Their Haki training has given them a foundation. Naruto nodded, watching as a young warrior named Mari successfully gathered visible energy around her hands, faint but unmistakable. Their physical conditioning is exceptional too, he observed. Better than most genin back home. From her position at the edge of the training ground, Hancock watched with growing interest. The outsider moved among her warriors with surprising patience, adjusting his instruction to each student's natural aptitude. There was no condescension in his teaching. No masculine arrogance she'd come to expect from men in positions of authority. Instead, he offered praise when warranted and gentle correction when needed, treating the youngest trainee with the same respect as the most seasoned veteran. He's a natural teacher, Marigold commented quietly, following her sister's gaze. Hancock didn't respond, her attention fixed on Naruto as he demonstrated a simple chakra exercise, walking up the trunk of a tree without using hands. The gathered Amazons gasped as he casually strolled up the vertical surface, then stood upside down on a branch, grinning down at his astonished students. It's all about maintaining consistent chakra flow, he explained, dropping back to the ground with effortless grace. Too little and you slip off. Too much and you repel yourself from the surface. But what practical purpose does this serve? Demanded an older warrior skeptically. Mobility in combat, Naruto answered immediately. Imagine attacking from positions your opponent doesn't expect, above, below, from any surface. Imagine never losing your footing, even on unstable ground or in stormy seas. He glanced at Hancock. Or walking on water to rescue me one drowning without risking yourself to the ocean. Several warriors nodded thoughtfully at this. In an island nation where many could never swim due to devil fruit powers, such an ability would be invaluable. Let's try something simpler first, Naruto suggested, producing kunai from his pouch and using them to mark horizontal lines at various heights on several trees. Start here, focus chakra to your feet, and see how high you can get before you fall. As the warriors eagerly began attempting the exercise, Naruto approached Hancock and her sisters. They're progressing faster than I expected, he told them. Your hockey training gives them excellent foundations for chakra control. And what of their potential for these? Hancock gestured to where his clone continued instructing the other group. These duplicates of yourself, shadow clones are advanced, Naruto admitted. But basic cloning techniques might be achievable for some. The real value will be in enhancing what they already do well, infusing weapons with chakra for greater penetrating power, reinforcing their bodies against damage, improving speed and strength. Hancock considered this. Show me, she commanded, stepping into the training area. Attack me with one of your techniques. I will defend with haki. The clearing fell silent as warriors moved back, creating space for their empress and the outsider. Naru, to recognize the challenge for what it was, not just a test of his abilities but a demonstration for her people that she remained their strongest defender. I'll use 30% power, he offered. Any technique in particular you'd like to defend against? The casual offer to limit his power clearly irked Hancock, her eyes narrowing. Do not insult me, Naruto Uzumaki. Attack as you would a true opponent. Naruto nodded, recognizing her pride wouldn't accept anything less. As you wish, Snake Princess. He moved with deceptive casualness, circling Hancock with measured steps. Then, without warning, his pace accelerated exponentially. He seemed to blur, afterimages trailing behind him as he approached from multiple angles simultaneously. Hancock's eyes widened fractionally, the only indication of surprise she allowed herself. Her body shifted into a defensive stance, arms darkening with the glossy black sheen of armament haki. Naruto struck with a precisely controlled Rasengan, the SW. Whirling blue orb aimed at her midsection, powerful enough to demonstrate its danger but controlled enough to pull back if necessary. To his surprise, Hancock didn't dodge. Instead, she met his attack directly, her haki-infused palm connecting with the edge of the spiraling chakra sphere. The resulting collision sent a shockwave across the training ground, kicking up dust and forcing nearby observers to shield their eyes. When visibility returned, Hancock and Naruto stood mere feet apart, his Rasengan dissipated and her arms still extended, wisps of steam rising from her haki-covered palm. Impressive, Naruto acknowledged genuinely. Your haki neutralized the outer layer of my Rasengan. And your attack contained far more power than you initially revealed, Hancock observed, lowering her arm. The slightest tremor in her hand was the only sign of the effort it had cost her to defend against his technique. A murmur ran through the watching Amazons. Few had ever seen their empress genuinely tested in combat. Again, Hancock commanded, eyes glinting with what might have been excitement beneath her composed exterior. But this time, I will attack. Without waiting for his agreement, she launched forward, leg extended in one of her signature kicks. Naruto sidestepped, recognizing the danger in those legs that could shatter stone. But Hancock had anticipated his movement, pivoting with serpentine grace to deliver a follow-up strike. Naruto blocked with his forearm, chakra reinforcing the point of impact. The force still sent him skidding backward several feet. You're holding back, he observed, rolling his shoulder. As are you, she countered. For the next several minutes, they exchanged techniques, Naruto demonstrating various jutsu while Hancock countered with her mastery of the 6 powers and haki. Their movements became increasingly fluid, almost like a choreographed dance as each adapted to the other's style. The watching warriors were spellbound. Even Elder Nyan, who had arrived midway through the demonstration, found herself leaning forward with uncharacteristic intensity. They're compatible, Marigold whispered to Sandersonia, a note of disbelief in her voice. Her fighting style complements his. Sandersonia agreed reluctantly. His unpredictability balances her precision. The exchange culminated when Hancock unleashed her Mero beam, not at Naruto, who remained immune, but at the ground beneath him, transmuting the earth itself to stone that began crumbling under his weight. As he leapt to avoid falling, she appeared above him, leg raised for a devastating axe kick. Instead of dodging, Naruto summoned a single shadow clone in midair. The clone grabbed him by the arm and swung him clear of Hancock's attack before dispelling. Naruto landed L-I-G-H-T-L-Y on his feet at the exact moment Hancock's kick connected with the ground, creating a crater that sent fracture spider webbing across the training area. They faced each other across the damaged clearing, both breathing slightly harder but otherwise showing minimal signs of exertion. A moment of silence hung in the air, then Hancock did something that shocked her watching subjects. She smiled. It was brief, barely visible before her usual composed expression returned, but unmistakable nonetheless. With a regal nod, she straightened to her full height. "Your techniques have merit," she announced, as if confirming a minor point rather than having just participated in the most dynamic combat exercise many present had ever witnessed. Training will continue as planned. As the Amazon warriors broke into excited discussion, returning to their practice with renewed enthusiasm, Elder Nyan approached Naruto. "You deliberately matched your style to hers," the elder observed quietly. "You could have overwhelmed her with raw power. Yet you chose to showcase compatibility instead. Why?" Naruto glanced toward Hancock, who was now instructing some of her warriors on how to counter chakra-based attacks with haki. "Because impressive as it might be, overwhelming power doesn't teach anything useful," he replied. "Compatibility shows what's possible when different techniques work together." He smiled slightly. "Besides, I get the feeling your empress doesn't respond well to being overwhelmed." Elder Nyan's shrewd eyes studied him thoughtfully. Few have ever truly seen Boa Hancock, Naruto Uzumaki. They see the beauty, the power, the title, but not the woman beneath. She paused, seeming to choose her next words carefully. "Do not mistake a moment's regard for acceptance. Her wounds run deeper than you can imagine." Before Naruto could respond, a commotion at the edge of the training grounds drew their attention. A warrior had arrived, breathing hard from evident haste. "Empress," she called out, "a marine ship has been spotted approaching the island. Vice Admiral Momonga requests permission to dock for inspection." The effect on the assembled Amazons was immediate. Training LTED as tension rippled through the clearing. Hancock's expression hardened, all traces of the earlier smile vanishing as she issued rapid commands. "Secure the village. All younger warriors are to remain out of sight. Marigold, Sandersonia, prepare to receive our guests." Her gaze found Naruto. "You will return to your quarters immediately. Your presence must remain unknown to the Marines." "What's going on?" Naruto asked, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere. "Who are these Marines?" "The military branch of the world government," Elder Nyan explained tersely. "As a warlord, Hancock must periodically allow inspections to maintain our protected status. But their timing is concerning. You think they know about me?" The elder's expression grew grim. "The world government has ways of monitoring significant energy disturbances across the seas. Your battle with the Sea King, perhaps even your arrival itself, may have registered on their instruments." "Then hiding me won't solve anything," Naruto pointed out. "If they're already suspicious enough to come looking, concealing my presence will only confirm those suspicions." Hancock had approached during this exchange, her face a mask of cold calculation. "What do you propose instead?" she demanded. "That I simply present you to them. An unregistered, unknown male with powers that would immediately mark you for capture or execution." "Not exactly," Naruto said. "An idea forming. But what if I wasn't unknown? What if I had a reason to be here that they'd accept?" Hancock's eyes narrowed. "Explain. You're allowed to have a crew as a warlord, right? Other pirate captains have men working for them." "The Kuja pirates have never accepted men," Marigold interjected firmly. "But they don't know that," Naruto countered. "What if I'm a new recruit? Someone with useful abilities you've decided to make an exception for?" Elder Nyan stroked her chin thoughtfully. "It could work. Marine intelligence is thorough but not omniscient. They know the Kuja tradition against men but might believe Hancock would make a strategic exception for someone exceptionally useful. It's a risk, Sandersonia warned. If they recognize his N.R.G. signature matches what their instruments detected. We'll need a distraction, Naruto suggested. Something to explain any unusual readings they picked up. And I can suppress my chakra to appear more normal, less noticeable. Hancock paced several steps, her mind clearly racing through contingencies. Finally, she stopped, decision made. Very well, you will pose as a new recruit, a foreign R with useful abilities of recently acquired for specific missions. Her eyes locked with his, deadly serious. But understand this, if you betray us to the Marines, if you endanger Amazon Lily in any way, my mercy will end instantly. I understand, Naruto said solemnly. I give you my word, I won't let any harm come to your home or your people. Something flickered in Hancock's eyes at the sincerity in his voice, surprise, perhaps. Or the faintest hint of trust. But it vanished quickly as she turned to issue orders for the Marines' reception. As the training ground cleared, warriors hurrying to their assigned positions. Naruto found himself walking alongside Elder Nyan toward the palace. These Marines, he asked quietly, how dangerous are they? Vice Admiral Momonga is powerful and intelligent, the elder replied. Not easily fooled, and if he's come personally rather than sending a lower-ranked officer, it suggests this is no routine inspection. And the world government, they say. RVE, what exactly are they protecting by monitoring energy disturbances? Elder Nyan glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard before answering. Control, primarily. The world government maintains power through strict regulation of information and capabilities. Certain knowledge is forbidden. Certain powers are monitored. Those who threaten their established order are. She paused ominously. Removed. Sounds familiar. Naruto murmured, reminded of Root and Danzo's operations in Konoha's darker days. Prepare yourself, the elder advised as they neared the palace. And remember, Vice Admiral Momonga has served the Marines for decades. He's encountered devil fruit users with extraordinary abilities before. What will make him suspicious isn't power itself, but power that operates on principles unknown to this world. Naruto nodded, understanding the warning. He would need to be careful about which abilities he revealed, stick to things that could plausibly be explained by this world's logic. As they entered the palace, servants rushed about preparing for the Marines' arrival. Amidst the controlled chaos, Hancock appeared in the corridor, now dressed in her full regalia as a warlord and empress. Come, she instructed Naruto curtly. You'll need appropriate attire if you're to pass as one of my crew. She led him to a chamber where clothing had been hastily assembled, a dark sleeveless vest similar to what male pirates in this world apparently wore, loose pants bound with a sash, and an assortment of accessories that would help him blend in with the local aesthetic. SA belonged to captives from previous encounters, Hancock explained dispassionately. Men who attempted to breach our shores. What happened to them? Naruto asked, though he suspected the answer. Hancock's expression remained impassive. The law of Amazon Lily was upheld. The implication was clear. Naruto changed quickly, recognizing that each moment brought the marine ship closer to their shores. As he secured the unfamiliar garments, Hancock studied him with a critical eye. Your whisker markings are distinctive, she observed. They may draw attention. I can't exactly remove them, Naruto pointed out. They're not tattoos, I was born with them. Then we incorporate them into your cover story. A tribal marking from your homeland, perhaps. She reached out suddenly, her fingers brushing his cheek with unexpected gentleness as she traced the whisker-like lines. They do resemble a cat's whiskers, or a fox's. The touch was brief, gone almost before Naruto registered it, but so. Nothing in her expression had softened momentarily. Then her imperious demeanor returned, and she stepped back. One final detail, she said, producing a small object from a concealed pocket in her dress. All members of my crew wear this symbol. It was a small pin bearing the Kuja pirate's emblem, a skull surrounded by a serpent. Hancock affixed it to his vest with practiced efficiency. Now remember, you speak only when spoken to. You defer to me in all matters. And should combat become necessary. She met his gaze directly. You follow my lead. Understood, Captain, Naruto replied with Just enough of a grin to make her eyes narrow slightly. A messenger arrived, breathless with urgency. Empress, the marine vessel has reached our harbor. Vice Admiral Momonga awaits your pleasure at the docks. Hancock nodded dismissively, the messenger immediately withdrawing. She turned to Naruto one final time. Are you certain you wish to risk this? My powers ensure the Marines leave me largely autonomous. I could simply order them away. And confirm their suspicions that you're hiding something, Naruto countered. Better to face them directly with a plausible story than give them reason to return with greater forces. She studied him for a moment longer before inclining her head slightly. Very well, let us go welcome our distinguished visitors. The harbor of Amazon Lily present. An impressive sight as Hancock's procession made its way down from the palace. The marine vessel, a sleek warship bearing the seagull insignia of the world government, had anchored at a respectful distance. With only a small landing craft approaching the actual docks, a handful of Marines in crisp white uniforms stood at attention as a tall, stern-faced man with a short-cropped beard surveyed the island with alert eyes. Naruto, walking several paces behind Hancock and her sisters, immediately recognized the Vice Admiral as a dangerous opponent. Everything about the man spoke of disciplined POWer, from his ramrod straight posture to the controlled economy of his movements as he stepped forward to greet the approaching Kuja delegation. Empress Hancock, Momonga addressed her with formal correctness, bowing slightly. Thank you for receiving us on such short notice. Vice Admiral, Hancock acknowledged coldly. Your presence is unexpected. The annual inspection was completed nearly 2 months ago. This is not a scheduled inspection, Momonga replied evenly. 3 days ago, our monitoring stations detected an unusual energy signature in this vicinity. Protocol requires investigation of all unexplained phenomena in territories under warlord jurisdiction. His gaze swept over the assembled Kuja warriors before landing on Naruto with a barely perceptible narrowing of the eyes. The only indication of surprise at seeing a man among the Amazons. I see you've made an exception to your usual recruitment practices, he observed neutrally. Hancock's expression remained imperiously bored. The Kuja pirates value exceptional utility above rigid tradition, Vice Admiral. When rare talent presents itself, I would be remiss as captain not to capitalize on it. Momonga's attention shifted fully to Naruto now. And you are. Before Naruto could answer, Hancock interjected smoothly. This is Naruto, a specialist from the outer reaches of the New World. His unique abilities proved useful enough to warrant an exception to our usual standards. Indeed, Momonga's tone remained professionally polite, but his eyes had grown sharper. And what abilities might those be? Combat efficiency, Hancock replied vaguely. Reconnaissance. The usual requirements of a pirate crew operating under warlord sanction. Her voice cooled noticeably. Unless the world government now dictates pay. Arsenal decisions for its independent contractors. The subtle reminder of her status, technically allied with but not subordinate to the Marines, caused Momonga to incline his head slightly in acknowledgement of the boundary. Of course not, Empress. I merely find the timing interesting. A new recruit with unique abilities, appearing shortly before our sensors detect an anomalous energy signature. Your sensors detected a Sea King attack, Marigold stated flatly. An unusually large specimen approached our eastern shore 3 days ago. We repelled it using our strongest warriors and most advanced techniques. Perhaps your instruments need recalibration if they cannot distinguish between combat and something more sinister. It was a reasonable explanation, and Naruto observed how Momonga seemed to consider it seriously. But the Vice Admiral's next words confirmed he wasn't entirely convinced. A simple matter to verify. I request permission to inspect the eastern shore where this battle occurred. Standard protocol for energy anomaly investigations. Hancock's expression didn't change, but Naruto sensed the subtle tension that rippled through the Kuja warriors at the request. If Momonga examined the site closely, would he find traces of chakra distinct from this world's energies? By all means, Hancock agreed with apparent indifference. Sandersonia will escort you. I have matters requiring my attention at the palace. Actually, Empress, Momonga countered smoothly. Protocol requires your presence during site inspections in warlord territories. Security measures, you understand. The impasse was subtle but unmistakable. Naruto could see Hancock calculating her options, refusing would heighten suspicion, but allowing a detailed inspection risked exposure. Perhaps I could be of assistance, Naruto suggested, speaking for the first time. All eyes turned to him as he continued, directing his words to Hancock with appropriate deference. If the Vice Admiral is concerned about energy signatures, I could demonstrate some of the techniques used during the Sea King battle. Might help their instruments get an accurate reading for their records. Momonga's gaze sharpened with interest. An excellent suggestion. A practical demonstration would indeed provide useful calibration data. Hancock shot Naruto a look that mixed warning with reluctant approval before nodding regally. Very well, we shall proceed to the eastern shore. As they walked, Naruto fell into step beside Sandersonia, who muttered under her breath, "What are you playing at?" Offering to demonstrate your abilities is exactly what we're trying to avoid. Trust me, Naruto whispered back. I know what I'm doing. The eastern beach still bore evidence of the Sea King battle, scorch marks from Naruto's Rasengan. Deep gouges in the sand, and the unmistakable crater where the massive creature had fallen. Momonga surveyed the damage with professional assessment. Impressive, he acknowledged. Huff, these patterns seem unusual for traditional Kuja weaponry. One of the Marines accompanying him produced a small device that emitted faint beeping sounds as it was waved over the area. The man frowned at the readings. Sir, the residual energy patterns match our initial detection, but there's something off about the signature. It doesn't correspond to any known devil fruit or hockey manifestation in our database. Momonga turned to Hancock. Perhaps that demonstration now, so we can properly classify these energies. Hancock glanced at Naruto, a silent communication passing between them. She inclined her head slightly, granting permission but also warning caution. Naruto stepped forward, mentally reviewing which techniques would seem plausibly like devil fruit abilities without revealing the true nature of chakra. He settled on a straightforward approach. The Sea King attacked from there, he indicated, pointing toward the ocean. It was fast for its size, nearly caught some trainees unaware. We responded with combined techniques. He formed a single hand sign, deliberately limiting himself to one rather than the multiple signs most jutsu required, and created 3 shadow clones. The Marines reacted with surprise but not shock. Clearly, duplication abilities existed in this world. My specialty, Naruto explained casually. Useful for coordinated attacks against larger opponents. The Marine with the monitoring device was recording readings intently, but Momonga's expression remained composed. Duplication is uncommon but not unprecedented. Paramesha type, I presume. Naruto nodded, recognizing the classification from his conversations with Elder Nyan. Something like that. His clones moved to different positions around the beach, then simultaneously performed a simplified water technique, again, with minimal hand signs to make it appear more like a devil fruit ability than a learned jutsu. Jets of water shot from their mouths toward a central point, combining into a larger column that could feasibly have struck a Sea King. Interesting, Momonga observed. Both multiplication and elemental control. An unusual combination. The Kuja value versatility, Hancock interjected smoothly. Which is precisely why exceptions are occasionally made for particularly useful additions to our forces. The Marine with the monitoring device approached Momonga, speaking quietly, Sir. The energy pattern matches approximately 70% with our recorded anomaly, but several key frequencies are absent or diminished. Naruto had deliberately used only a fraction of his chakra, carefully modulating its flow to minimize its unique characteristics. The partial match was perfect, enough to explain the readings without fully confirming their suspicions. Momonga considered this information, his gaze shifting between Naruto and Hancock. One final question, if I may. This recruit of yours, when exactly did he join your crew? 3 weeks ago, Hancock replied without hesitation. We encountered his vessel near the calm belt. After a demonstration of his capabilities, I offered him a position. 3 weeks, Momonga repeated, his tone neutral. Before the energy anomaly, then. Curious that we received no personnel update in your regular reports. An oversight, Hancock dismissed with imperial indifference. One hardly worth a special voyage by a vice admiral, wouldn't you agree? The challenge in her tone was subtle but unmistakable. She was reminding him of her status, of the delicate political balance between warlords and the world government they conditionally served. For a moment, Tension hung in the air between them. Then Momonga inclined his head slightly. Indeed, Empress. Merely procedural concerns. He turned to his subordinate. Do we have sufficient readings for headquarters? Yes, sir. The data should be adequate for classification purposes. Then we won't impose on the Empress's hospitality any longer. Momonga bowed formally to Hancock. Thank you for your cooperation. We'll update our records regarding both the Sea King incident and your new acquisition. As the Marines prepared to depart, Momonga paused, his gaze gearing on Naruto with undisguised assessment. A word of advice, Empress, he said quietly. The world government takes great interest in unique abilities, particularly those that might upset established powers. Your new recruit would do well to remain inconspicuous. Is that a threat, Vice Admiral? Hancock asked, her voice dangerous. Merely an observation, Momonga replied evenly. These are turbulent times. The balance of power shifts with each new discovery, each new anomaly. His eyes met Naruto's directly. Choose your allegiances carefully, young man. Some paths cannot be retraced once taken. With that cryptic warning, he rejoined his men, the Marine contingent departing with military precision back toward their waiting vessel. As they watched the ship raise anchor and begin its journey away from Amazon Lily, Sandersonia exhaled slowly. That was too close. No, Hancock contradicted, her eyes still fixed on the retreating warship. That was exactly as close as Momonga intended. He came to confirm a suspicion, not discover a truth. What does that mean? Naruto asked. It means, Elder Nyan interjected, having joined them at the shore, that someone in the world G. Overment already suspects what you are, or at least, that you are something unprecedented. Momonga was testing both the energy readings and our reactions. But we gave him a plausible explanation, Naruto pointed out. Plausible, yes. Convincing. Hancock turned to face him, her expression grave. That remains to be seen. What now? Marigold asked. Hancock's gaze returned to the horizon where T. He marine vessel had nearly disappeared from view. Now we prepare. If they sent a vice admiral for initial investigation, they'll send something more formidable for the follow-up. You're sure there will be one? Naruto asked. Certain. Hancock confirmed. The world government does not tolerate unexplained power. They will either seek to control it or eliminate it. Her eyes met his, something almost like concern flickering in their depths. And they rarely take refusal well. The days following Momonga's visit took on a new urgency. Training intensified as more Kuja warriors joined Naruto's sessions, eager to learn techniques that might strengthen their island's defenses. Progress varied. Some warriors showed natural aptitude for chakra manipulation, while others struggled with even the basic concepts. It's like teaching civilian adults back home, Naruto explained to Hancock as they observed the training from the shade of a massive banyan tree. Their chakra networks are fully formed but untrained. Some adapt quickly because they have naturally high reserves or good control. Others need more time to access what's always been dormant inside them. Hancock nodded thoughtfully, yet even those with limited aptitude show improvement in their existing techniques. Mari can now infuse her arrows with enough chakra to penetrate stone, though she cannot yet walk on water. Different affinities, Naruto suggested. In my world, most shinobi have a natural leaning toward certain elements or techniques. Your warriors seem to be the same. They watched in companionable silence as Sandersonia worked with a group of advanced students, her own understanding of chakra having progressed remarkably quickly. Her serpentine flexibility paired with even basic chakra enhancement had made her already formidable abilities truly dangerous. My sister seems to have embraced your teachings enthusiastically, Hancock observed. Surprising, given her initial skepticism. She cares about protecting Amazon Lily. Naruto replied simply, and she's smart enough to recognize useful tools, regardless of their source. Hancock's gaze shifted to him, something unreadable in her expression. Is that how you see yourself? A useful tool for our defense? I see myself as someone who was fortunate enough to wash up on shores protected by strong, intelligent women rather than being found by T. His world government everyone speaks of with such caution, Naruto answered honestly. Helping strengthen those defenses is the least I can do in return. A hint of a smile touched Hancock's lips. A diplomatic answer. You're learning our politics. I had practice navigating complex alliances back home, Naruto said, memories of the 5-Cage summit and the formation of the allied shinobi forces surfacing briefly. Though I usually relied more on stubbornness than subtlety. This drew a genuine chuckle from Hancock, a sound so rare that several nearby warriors glanced over in surprise before quickly averting their eyes. Your honesty is refreshing, she admitted. Most who interact with me either grovel in fear or adoration, or attempt manipulation through flattery. Neither approach seems likely to work with you, Naruto observed with a grin. Besides, where I come from, even the Hokage, our leader, was just a person doing their best for the village. Respect was earned through actions, not demanded through titles. Hancock seemed to consider this, her gaze drifting back to the training warriors. A strange concept. In this world, power and position are often inseparable. The strong command, the weak obey. And where do you fit in that hierarchy? Naruto asked carefully. Something darkened in Hancock's expression. I have ensured that neither I nor my sisters will ever be among the weak again. Whatever the cost. The weight behind those words silenced further conversation. They continued watching the training in contemplative quiet until Elder Nyan approached, her expression unusually grave. Empress, a message has arrived from our informants in Sabayati. Naval movements suggest the world government has taken an official interest in our recent visitor. She glanced meaningfully at Naruto. Hancock's expression hardened instantly. What kind of interest? Dr. Vegapunk himself has apparently requested data from Vice Admiral Momonga's visit. And there are rumors of CP0 involvement. Both sisters, overhearing this from nearby, tensed visibly. Naruto noted their reaction with concern. I'm guessing CP0 isn't a friendly neighborhood patrol, he asked. Cipher Pol Igus 0. Elder Nyan explained grimly. The world government's most elite and secretive intelligence agency. Their agents answer only to the 5 elders and operate above the law. If they've taken interest in you, then our deception failed, Hancock finished, her voice cold. Momonga's report must have confirmed their suspicions. Naruto frowned, considering the implications. This drive, Vegapunk. Who is he? The world government's chief scientific authority, Marigold replied. A genius whose technological developments have revolutionized everything from warfare to medicine. If he's involved, then they're treating this as a scientific anomaly rather than just a security threat, Sandersonia concluded. Hancock turned to Naruto, her expression suddenly businesslike. We need to KN. Out exactly what you can do, your full capabilities, limitations, everything. No more holding back in training. If CP0 is coming, we need to be prepared for the worst. Naruto nodded solemnly. You're right, but there's something you should know first. He glanced around at the gathered women. Something I've been reluctant to fully explain until I was certain of Amazon Lily's stance toward the world government. Hancock raised an eyebrow. You still harbor doubts about our allegiance. Not doubts, Naruto clarified. Caution. The power I contain. Kurama's power. It's the kind that governments in my world tried to weaponize. Villages went to war over beings like him. I needed to be sure that knowledge wouldn't put him at risk. Understanding dawned in Elder Nyan's eyes. You feared we might surrender you to the world government in exchange for continued protection. It would have been the rational choice, Naruto acknowledged. Trade one outsider for the safety of your entire island. A flash of something like hurt crossed Hancock's face, quickly masked by imperial dignity. Amazon Lily does not sacrifice its own to appease tyrants, she stated coldly. We have suffered enough at the hands of the world government to know better. The personal weight behind those words caught Naruto's attention. There was history there, painful history that explained much about Amazon Lily's isolate Ion and the sisters' distrust of outsiders. Then I think it's time I showed you what I can really do, he said, meeting Hancock's gaze directly. Not just what might pass for a devil fruit ability, the full extent of my and Kurama's power. Hancock held his gaze for a long moment before nodding. Tonight, then, the northern cliffs overlook uninhabited waters. You can demonstrate without risk to the village. As the group dispersed to continue training and prepare defenses, Naruto found himself walking alongside Hancock back toward the palace. An unusual tension hung between them, not hostility but something more complex. You're angry, he observed quietly. I am not given to such petty emotions, she replied stiffly. Right, Naruto said, unconvinced. And I'm not stubborn. That earned him a sidelong glance, almost amused despite her attempt at aloofness. After several moments of silence, she spoke again, her voice lower. You believed we would betray you. I considered it a possibility, Naruto corrected gently. Just as you considered the possibility that I might be a threat when I first washed ashore. Caution isn't the same as accusation. Hancock stopped walking, turning to face him fully. For once, her perfect features weren't arranged in their usual mask of imperious beauty but showed genuine emotion, a complex mixture of pride, vulnerability, and something deeper. Amazon Lily has survived for generations because we trust no one, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The outside world has given us ample reason for caution, particularly those of us who have seen its darkest aspects. The celestial dragons, Naruto guessed, remembering how that name had affected the sisters. Hancock's expression froze, her body tensing visibly. For a moment, Naruto thought she would walk away, or worse, lash out. Instead, she drew a measured breath. Follow me, she commanded, her tone allowing no refusal as she changed direction, leading him toward a secluded den rarely visited by the palace's regular inhabitants. When they were alone among ancient flowering trees and bubbling fountains, Hancock turned to him once more. What I am about to tell you, I have shared with no outsider, she began. Her voice controlled but with an undercurrent of old pain. It is the reason Amazon Lily forbids men, the reason my sisters and I returned to rule this island with absolute conviction that isolation is our only protection. Naruto remained silent, recognizing the magnitude of what she was offering, not just information, but trust. Years ago, when we were barely more than children, my sisters and I were captured by slave traders while exploring beyond our shores. Hancock's voice remained steady, though her eyes had grown distant. We were sold to the Celes, teal dragons, the self-proclaimed world nobles who consider themselves gods among men. For years, we existed as their property, forced to eat devil fruits for their amusement, branded like cattle, and made to perform for their entertainment. Quote, she turned slightly, her hand moving to the high collar of her dress. With deliberate movements, she lowered it just enough to reveal a mark on her back, the unmistakable brand of the hoof of the flying dragon, symbol of the world noble's ownership. This mark can never be removed, she continued, her voice hardening as she readjusted her clothing. It is a permanent reminder of what the outside world, what men, reduced us to. Less than human, mere possessions to be used and discarded at whim. Naruto felt Kurama stir within him, the fox's anger rising at the story. Some evils transcend worlds, it seems, the Nine Tails growled mentally. How did you escape? Naruto asked quietly. A fishman named Fisher Tiger raided Mariajoy, the celestial dragons saw Cred City, and freed all the slaves he found. We returned to Amazon Lily, where I became empress by right of strength and lineage. Her eyes met his, steel beneath the surface. I swore then that no one, would ever control us again. Not the world government, not the Marines, not any man. And that's why you became a warlord, Naruto realized. Not out of allegiance to the world government, but to protect Amazon Lily from them. Hancock nodded once. They leave us largely autonomous in exchange for minimal cooperation. It is a compromise I tolerate to ensure my people's safety. The magnitude of what she had shared, the vulnerability she had shown, wasn't lost on Naruto. This was Hancock without her armor, revealing the wounds that had shaped her into the woman she had become. Thank you, he said simply, for trusting me with your story. I did not tell you to earn gratitude, Hancock replied, some of her usual sharpness returning. I told you so you would understand why Amazon Lee will not surrender to CP0 or any other world government agent. Not you, not ourselves, not our freedom. Her eyes flashed with determination. We have all endured too much to bow again. Naruto nodded, a newfound respect filling him. Then we stand together. Whatever comes next, we face it as allies. Something shifted in Hancock's expression, a subtle softening, a momentary vulnerability quickly masked by renewed composure. Allies, she repeated, as if testing the concept. A foreign notion on Amazon Lily. Foreign but not impossible, Naruto suggested with a smile. After all, you've already accepted a man walking freely among your warriors, teaching them techniques from another world. Compared to that, simple alliance seems pretty straightforward. The faintest hint of a smile touched Hancock's lips. You have a peculiar way of simplifying complex matters, Naruto Uzumaki. It's a gift, he replied with mock solemnity. Comes with the whiskers. That drew a genuine laugh from brief but unguarded, before she composed herself once more. Come, we have preparations to make before tonight's demonstration. As they walked back toward the palace, Naruto felt a shift in their dynamic, a newfound understanding born of shared vulnerability. Hancock had revealed her deepest scar, and in doing so, had created a bridge between them that transcended their differences in origin and experience. Tonight, he would reciprocate that trust by revealing Kurama's full power, not just as a demonstration of capability, but as a declaration of mutual alliance against whatever the world government might send their way. The northern cliffs of Amazon Lily rose like sentinels above the restless sea, ancient stone worn smooth by countless centuries of wind and waves. Moonlight silvered the landscape as Hancock, her sisters, Elder Nyan, and a select group of the island's strongest warriors gathered to witness Naruto's demonstration. The location had been chosen carefully, far enough from the village to prevent accidental damage, yet within Amazon Lily's protected waters where observation from passing ships would be impossible. The cliff itself formed a natural amphitheater, with terra-ced outcroppings providing perfect vantage points for the assembled observers. Naruto stood alone on a flat expanse of rock jutting out over the ocean, centering himself as he prepared to reveal the full extent of his capabilities. Behind him, he could sense the anticipation radiating from the Kuja warriors, particularly Hancock, whose gaze he could feel like a physical presence against his back. What you're about to see, he began, turning to address them, represents the combined power of myself and Kurama, the nine-tailed fox whose chakra has been sealed within me since birth. In my world, beings like Kurama were sought after as weapons of war, their power harnessed by villages to maintain balance against their rivals. Like devil fruits, then, one warrior suggested. Sources of power to be controlled. Naruto shook his head. Devil fruits, as I understand them, are objects that grant abilities. Tailed beasts are conscious entities with their own wills, thoughts, and feelings. Kurama isn't a power source I use, he's my partner. Partner seems generous, considering how often you've nearly gotten us killed, Kurama grumbled within him, though Naruto could sense the fox's amusement. I'll demonstrate in stages, Naruto continued. First, my base abilities, techniques any skilled shinobi from my world might possess, though perhaps not to the same degree. He began with the fundamentals, shadow clones, transformation techniques, and basic elemental jutsu. Though the Kuja had seen some of these during training sessions, he now performed them without restraint, creating dozens of perfect clones simultaneously and transforming entire sections of the cliffside with large-scale earth techniques. Next came the more advanced abilities, Rasengan in its various forms, Sage Mode with its enhanced sensing capabilities and nature energy manipulation. He demonstrated how Sage Mode allowed him to detect presences across vast distances, identifying ships sailing beyond the horizon that even the Kuja's observation haki couldn't clearly distinguish. Impressive, Sandersonia acknowledged, genuinely intrigued by the demonstration. But you mentioned these were abilities a skilled warrior from your world might possess. What makes you and this Kurama different? This, Naruto replied simply. He closed his eyes, connecting with Kurama's consciousness within him. Ready to show off a bit, old friend. Just try not to destroy the island, Kit. I've grown somewhat fond of these warrior women. Golden chakra erupted around Naruto's body, enveloping him in a radiant aura that illuminated the entire cliffside. The Kuja warriors gasped collectively as the energy coalesced into a distinctive form, a humanoid figure surrounded by 9 flowing tails of pure chakra. This is my 9 tails chakra mode, Naruto explained, his voice slightly altered by the transformation. It gives me enhanced speed, strength, and sensory abilities beyond what Sage Mode provides. To demonstrate, he vanished from sight, moving so quickly that even the most experienced Kuja warriors couldn't track him until he reappeared at the far end of the cliff face, nearly a kilometer away, before instantly returning to his starting position. The speed is comparable to the highest levels of the 6 powers techniques, Marigold observed, unable to hide her amazement. But this isn't Kurama's full power, Naruto continued. Just a portion of his chakra that I can safely access. He intensified the transformation, the chakra cloak growing more defined as a spectral form began to manifest around him, the upper body of a massive fox with gleaming eyes and razor-sharp teeth. This is a partial manifestation of Kurama himself, Naruto explained as the phantom fox opened its mouth, forming a dense sphere of swirling energy. The tailed beast bomb contains concentrated positive and negative chakra, among the most destructive techniques in my world. He directed the attack toward the empty ocean, where it stray acted like a comet before detonating nearly a kilometer offshore. The resulting explosion sent a massive column of water skyward, the shockwave washing over the cliffs moments later with enough force to make the assembled warriors brace themselves. When the spray settled, a circular void remained in the ocean where water was still rushing in to fill the temporary crater created by the blast. Silenk. Fell over the gathering as the implications of such destructive power sank in. Even Hancock, normally unflappable, appeared momentarily stunned by the display. This, Elder Nyan finally spoke, her voice soft but carrying clearly in the stillness, is what the world government sensed. This is what has drawn their attention. Naruto allowed the chakra cloak to fade, returning to his normal appearance as he turned to face them fully. Yes, he acknowledged, and there's one more level beyond this, Kurama's complete manifestation, which I won't demonstrate here as it could potentially damage the island. But you needed to know what might be coming if CP0 or others force a confrontation. Hancock approached him, her expression unreadable as she studied him with new eyes. When she finally spoke, her voice carried no judgment, only tactical assessment. Such power would make you a priority target for the world government. They would seek to either control you or eliminate you, no other option would be acceptable to them. I figured as much, Naruto replied. Which is why I wanted you to see exactly what you're potentially harboring. The decision to stand against the world government for my sake has to be yours. Made with full knowledge of the consequences. Hancock's gaze shifted toward the ocean where the water was still settling from his demonstration. For a long moment, she said nothing, seemingly lost in calculation. Then she turned to address her assembled warriors. What you have witnessed tonight does not leave this gathering, she commanded. Knowledge of these abilities must remain contained to those present and those I personally authorize. The warriors bowed in acknowledgement, their expressions a mixture of awe and renewed determination. Sisters, Hancock continued, turning to Marigold and Sandersonia. Increase coastal patrols and implement the contingency protocols we established after Fisher Tiger's raid. Elder Nyan, consult our oldest records, anything She might reference visitors from beyond our world or energies similar to what Naruto has demonstrated. Each nodded in turn, accepting their assignments without question. As for you, she addressed Naruto directly. Training continues at dawn, but with a new focus. Teach our strongest warriors to recognize and potentially counter abilities similar to yours. If CP0 arrives with agents specialized in neutralizing unknown powers, we must be prepared. The strategic precision of her response impressed Naruto. There was no hesitation, no fear, only calculated preparation for the challenges ahead. You're not reconsidering your position? He asked quietly as the others began to disperse. Hancock regarded him with something like incredulity. Did you expect your demonstration to frighten me into submission? To make me reconsider harboring you? It would be the prudent choice, Naruto pointed out. The safest option for Amazon Lily. Safety, Hancock said, the word laden with contempt, is an illusion sold by those who would control us. The moment Amazon Lily surrenders its sovereignty in one matter, we invite subjugation in all others. Her eyes met his, fierce with conviction. I did know. She endured years of slavery to bow before threats, no matter how powerful the entity making them. The moonlight caught the angles of her face, illuminating the steel beneath the beauty that had made her legendary across the seas. In that moment, Naruto recognized in her the same unyielding will he had seen in the greatest leaders of his world, the refusal to compromise principles for convenience or safety. Then we stand together, he said simply. We do, she confirmed. Not merely for your sake, but for Amazon Lily's. The world government must learn that even warlords have boundaries they cannot cross. As they walked back toward the village, a comfortable silence settled between them. The demonstration had changed something fundamental in their relationship, moving it beyond cautious alliance toward genuine partnership. Your power, Hancock said eventually, breaking the silence. In your world, did it make you lonely? To possess abilities so far beyond others? The question caught Naruto off guard with its unexpected insight. For a long time, yes, he admitted. People feared what Kurama represented before they knew me as a person. It took years to prove I was more than the power I contained. Hancock nodded slightly, understanding in her expression. The curse of distinction, she murmured. To be defined by a single aspect of your existence while the person beneath remains unseen. You understand that better than most, Naruto observed. Your beauty has become both weapon and prison. Few have recognized that paradox, Hancock acknowledged, a note of surprise in her voice. Most see only the advantage, never the burden. I had a friend, Naruto said, memories of Sasuke surfacing, who was called a genius from childhood. Everyone envied his natural talents, Neve. Seeing how those expectations isolated him, pushed him toward darkness. He glanced at Hancock. Gifts can become cages when they're all others allow you to be. Hancock didn't respond immediately, but Naruto sensed his words had resonated deeply. When she finally spoke again, her voice carried an unusual gentleness. In all my years as Empress, no one has ever seen me as merely Hancock. Not the pirate empress, not the most beautiful woman in the world, not the warlord or the snake princess. Just a woman with her own thoughts and feelings apart from her titles and powers. Maybe that's why your Mero abilities don't work on me, Naruto suggested with a slight smile. I see the person behind the power. Something vulnerable flickered across Hancock's features, gone almost before it registered. But in that brief moment, Naruto glimpsed the woman beneath the Empress, and understood just how rarely she allowed herself to be seen. They had reached the palace gardens, the night-me fragrance of exotic flowers filling the air around them. Hancock paused beside a reflecting pool, moonlight dancing across its surface. We should rest, she said, her composed demeanor returning. Tomorrow brings new challenges, new preparations. Hancock, Naruto said softly, causing her to turn back toward him. Thank you for trusting me, both with your story and with Amazon Lily's safety. I won't let you down. For a moment, she simply looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. Then, with uncharacteristic impulsiveness, she reached out and briefly touched his hand, a fleeting contact that nonetheless sent an unexpected warmth through him. Good night, Naruto Uzumaki, she said, withdrawing her hand and turning toward her chambers. Dawn comes early. As he watched her depart, Naruto felt Kurama stir within him. You're developing feelings for her, the fox observed, more statement than question. Is that a problem? Naruto countered mentally. Only if you've forgotten our mission to return home, Kurama replied. Though without judgment, hearts divided between worlds rarely find peace. Naruto had no answer for that as he made his way to his own quarters, his thoughts swirling with contradictions. The fox was right. His goal remained finding a way back to Konoha, to his friends who believed him dead. And yet, something was changing within him, something unexpected but undeniable. In this strange world of pirates and marines, of ancient powers and modern conflicts, he had found a connection he hadn't been seeking but couldn't bring himself to regret. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own decisions. For tonight, he would allow himself to acknowledge the truth Kurama had named, that somehow, impossibly, the imperious Empress of Amazon Lily had begun to claim a place in his heart. Dawn arrived with disconcerting normalcy, the island awakening to its usual routines despite the revelations of the previous night. Naruto met Sandersonia at the training grounds as planned, where selected warriors awaited instruction in countering chakra-based techniques. Empress Hancock is overseeing coastal defenses, Sandersonia explained when he inquired about her absence. After your demonstration, she felt our perimeter securities needed immediate reassessment. They focused on practical counters, ways Haki could potentially disrupt chakra flow, how to recognize and avoid genjutsu-like techniques. Strategies for engaging shadow clones without wasting energy on duplicates. The warriors proved apt pupils, adapting their existing combat principles to these new challenges with impressive flexibility. Midday brought a brief respite as the tropical heat intensified. Naruto was demonstrating a chakra control exercise to a small group when a messenger arrived, breathless with urgency. Elder Nyan requests your presence immediately, she informed him. She's found something in the ancient archives. The archives occupied the lowest level of the palace, a say. Rise of climate-controlled chambers housing scrolls, books, and tablets dating back centuries. Elder Nyan hunched over a massive stone table, various ancient texts spread before her when Naruto entered. You found something about dimensional travel? He asked hopefully. Not exactly, the elder replied, gesturing him closer. But I found references to previous visitors who arrived under unusual circumstances, individuals whose abilities defied the logic of our world. She indicated a yellowed scroll covered in faded script. This account from over 400 years ago describes a pale strang who commanded flames that burned without fuel and created beasts from nothing but his own will. The descriptions closely resemble what you call ninjutsu. Naruto examined the scroll carefully. What happened to him? Unclear, Elder Nyan admitted. The account ends abruptly with mention of men in black robes who came seeking him. But this, she shifted to another document, this one carved into a thin sheet of what appeared to be jade. This is far more intriguing. The jade tablet featured intricate diagrams surrounding a central image, a stylized eye with concentric circles reminiscent of the Rinnegan. This predates even our oldest written history, Elder Nyan explained. But the symbols around the edge have been partially translated by scholars over the centuries. They speak of travelers between worlds and those with the eyes of gods who open doors in the sky. Naruto felt a surge of hope. The Rinnegan, Sasuke had it. It's a dojutsu from my world with space-time manipulation abilities. More importantly, the elder continued, it references a location, an island that exists between realms, where the boundaries between worlds grow thin. She tapped a particular symbol. This place was called Raftel by our ancestors. Raftel, Naruto repeated. Can we go there? Elder Nyan shook her head. Raftel is the most legendary island in our world, the final destination on the Grand Line. Said to hold the ultimate treasure, the One Piece. No one has reached it since Gall D. Roger's crew over 20 years ago. And its location, she sighed, known to none living. But if Roger found it, it can be found again, Naruto insisted. This could be my way home. Perhaps, the elder acknowledged cautiously. But the journey to Raftel requires traversing the entire Grand Line, facing dangers few crews survive. And the world government guards all information about it zealously. She fixed him with a serious gaze. They would kill to prevent anyone from learning what we've just discussed. Before Naruto could respond, alarm bells began ringing throughout the palace, the signal for imminent threat. That's the highest alert, Elder Nyan said, suddenly tense. Reserved for direct attacks on Amazon Lily. They rushed from the archives, emerging into corridors filled with warriors moving with practiced discipline toward defensive positions. Marigold intercepted them, her expression grim. Marine vessel approaching from the south, she reported tersely. Not announced, not following protocol. And it's not flying standard marine insignia. CP0, Elder Nyan concluded, exchanging a worried look with Naruto. They reached the palace's southern observation deck, where Hancock already stood with Sandersonia, watching the approaching ship through a spyglass. Unlike regular marine vessels, this one was sleek and dark, cutting through the water with ominous purpose. They're not attempting communication, Hancock noted as Naruto joined her. Standard procedure will require requesting permission to approach our territorial waters. How many? Naruto asked, assessing the threat. Small compliment. Perhaps 20 visible on deck. But CP0 agents. Sandersonia's voice held unusual tension. Even one is dangerous beyond measure. Hancock lowered the spyglass, her expression hardening into battle readiness. They've come for you, she stated, not a question but a certainty. Momonga's report must have confirmed their suspicions. Then I'll meet them, Naruto decided. Away from the village, minimize any risk to your people. No, Hancock countered immediately. That's exactly what they want, to isolate you from allies. We face them together, on our terms. Her eyes met his, allowing no argument. Amazon Lily does not abandon its own. The simple declaration struck Naruto deeply. After weeks on the island, he had somehow become one of them, someone worth protecting, worth fighting for. The realization brought an unexpected tightness to his chest. Very well, he agreed. Together. But we try diplomacy first. Hancock's skeptical expression suggested how little faith she had in diplomatic solutions with CP0, but she nodded once in agreement. Prepare the welcome ceremony, she instructed Sandersonia. Full honors, full display of force. Let them see exactly what they face if they choose confrontation. As her warriors rushed to implement her orders, Hancock turned back to the approaching vessel, her profile regal and determined against the midday sky. They think to intimidate us with their presence, she observed coldly. They forget who rules Amazon Lily. Within the hour, the Kuja warriors had assembled along the harbor in a display that balanced ceremonial welcome with unmistakable military preparedness. Hancock, flanked by her sisters and Elder Nyan, awaited the visitors at the head of a grand staircase leading from the docks. Naruto stood slightly behind her right shoulder, a position of honor that identified him as valued keeping him partially shielded from immediate view. The CP0 vessel anchored at a precise, calculated distance, close enough for easy access but far enough to allow quick departure if necessary. A single launch boat was lowered, carrying just 5 individuals, 4 in standard marine uniforms and 1 in the distinctive white attire of CP0, complete with the porcelain mask that concealed his features. As they approached the dock, Naruto studied the CP0 agent carefully. Even at a distance, he could sense the controlled power in the man's movements, the same economy of motion he'd observed in the most dangerous Anbu operatives back home. Agent Rhodes, Elder Nyan whispered, identifying the masked figure. Specialized in investigating unusual phenomena. Dangerous. The small party made its way up the staircase with measured steps. The masked agent moved with casual confidence, seemingly unconcerned by the dozens of armed Kuja warriors lining his path. Empress Hancock, he greeted when he reached the top. His voice cultured and pleasant despite the expressionless mask. Thank you for receiving us without prior notice. Urgent matters, unfortunately, do not always allow for proper protocol. Agent Rhodes, Hancock acknowledged coolly. CP0's presence on Amazon Lily is unprecedented. The urgency must indeed be exceptional. Rhodes tilted his head slightly, the mask revealing nothing of his expression. Direct as always, Empress. Very well. We come seeking information about an energy anomaly detected in your waters approximately 1 week ago. Vice Admiral Momonga's preliminary investigation proved inconclusive. His masked face turned slightly, focusing on Naruto despite his partially obscured position. And we are particularly interested in speaking with your new recruit. Naruto, I believe. The direct address confirmed what they had suspected. Momonga's report had identified Naruto specifically as the source of interest. My crew members are under my protection and authority, Hancock replied. Her tone hardening slightly. Any questions can be directed to me. Of course, Empress, Rhodes conceded smoothly. However, this matter falls under Special Directive Alpha 09, Investigation of Existential Threats to World Government Stability. Even warlords are required to comply fully. The coded reference seemed to carry significant weight. Several of the Kuja warriors tensed visibly. And Elder Nyan's expression grew grave. I assure you, Hancock stated coldly, nothing on Amazon Lily threatens your government's stability. Perhaps, Rhodes acknowledged, but verification requires direct examination. Dr. Vegapunk has developed specialized equipment for analyzing unusual energy signatures. He gestured to one of the Marines, who held a sleek metal case. A simple scan would resolve our concerns immediately. The diplomatic impasse was clear. Rhodes was offering a seemingly reasonable compromise while placing Hancock in a position where refusal would constitute direct defiance of world government authority. Before she could respond, Naruto stepped forward. I have nothing to hide, he said calmly. I'm happy to answer your questions and undergo whatever scans you need, provided they're conducted here, in the presence of Empress Hancock. Rhodes' mask turned toward him, the blank porcelain somehow conveying focused intensity despite its featurelessness. How cooperative. But I'm afraid the equipment is quite sensitive. calibrated for controlled environments aboard our vessel. Dr. Vegapunk was most insistent about proper testing conditions. Then drive. Vegapunk will be disappointed, Hancock interjected firmly. No citizen of Amazon Lily departs with foreign agents without my direct accompaniment. Citizen, Rhodes repeated, something like amusement in his tone. An interesting designation for a man on an island of women. He turned his mask back toward Naruto. Particularly one who appeared so suddenly after an unprecedented energy reading. The tension in the air thickened palpably. Kuja warriors shifted subtly into more advantageous combat positions, while the Marines accompanying Rhodes moved their hands closer to their weapons. Let's be direct, Rhodes suggested, all pretense of diplomatic courtesy fading from his voice. Our instruments detected energy unlike anything previously recorded in our world. Subsequent analysis of samples collected by Vice Admiral Momonga confirmed our suspicions. You, Naruto, are not from our world at all. Murmurs spread among the watching warriors. Though many had guessed or been told parts of Naruto's origin, hearing it stated so plainly by a world government agent made the situation suddenly, dramatically real. The world government, Rhodes continued, cannot allow unregulated, extra-dimensional entities to remain at large. The potential for disruption to established order is unacceptable. You will accompany us to a secure facility where Vegapunk can properly study your abilities and origin. And if I decline? Naruto asked quietly. The mask tilted slightly. This isn't a request. Hancock stepped forward, placing herself partially between Naruto and Rhodes. You overstep, Agent Rhodes. Even CP0 cannot simply seize individuals under a warlord's protection without due process. Due process, Rhodes repeated, the words dripping with disdain despite his measured tone. Empress, surely you understand that normal protocols do not apply to existential threats. The five elders themselves have authorized all necessary measures. He turned, gesturing toward the ship anchored in the harbor. Currently trained on your village are weapons specifically designed to counter devil fruit abilities. Dr. Vegapunk has been quite thorough in preparing for this encounter. The threat hung in the air, clear and unmistakable. Rhodes was offering a choice that was no choice at all, surrender Naruto or face destruction. You would attack an island under world government protection. Elder Nyan demanded, outrage clear in her voice. Violate the very treaties that established the warlord system. For threats of sufficient magnitude, exceptions are made, Rhodes replied simply. And the energy signature we detected qualifies as such a threat. He turned back to Hancock. The choice is yours, Empress. One outsider, or the safety of your entire island. Naruto felt a cold fury building within him. This was exactly the scenario he had feared, Amazon Lily endangered because of his presence. He prepared to step forward, to offer himself in exchange for the island's protection. When Hancock's voice cut through his thoughts, Amazon Lily, she declared, her tone ringing with imperial authority, does not bow to threats. Not from pirates, not from Marines, and certainly not from masked men hiding behind government authority. She drew herself up to her full height, radiating deadly purpose. You have 10 minutes to return to your vessel and leave our waters. Rhodes remained still for several heartbeats, his mask revealing nothing of his reaction to this direct defiance. You choose conflict, then, he finally stated, no question in his voice. Disappointing, but not unexpected. The world government has contingencies for warlord, non-compliance. And I have contingencies for unwelcome visitors who threaten my people, Hancock countered coldly. 10 minutes, Agent Rhodes. After that, I cannot guarantee your safety. The standoff stretched taut as a bowstring, neither side willing to back down. Finally, Rhodes inclined his head in what might have been respect or merely acknowledgement. We will withdraw, he conceded, raising his hand to forestall the objections of his Marine companions. But understand, Empress Hancock, that your decision today marks a fundamental change in your relationship with the world government. The protection of warlord status is contingent on compliance with directives of this magnitude. I am well aware of the terms of my arrangement, Hancock replied. Unintimidated, perhaps it is the world government that needs reminding of its obligations to its allies. Rhodes turned to Naruto, the blank mask somehow conveying intense focus despite its featurelessness. We will meet again, Naruto of the other world. And when we do, you will find us better prepared for your unique capabilities." With that ominous promise, he and his companions descended the stairs, returning to their launch boat with unhurried dignity. As they pulled away from the dock, the tension among the gathered Kuja warriors remained high, many clearly expecting immediate retaliation. "Prepare for battle," Hancock ordered as soon as the visitors were beyond earshot. "They will not leave peacefully despite their words." Sure enough, as the launch boat returned to the main vessel, increased activity became visible on its deck, hatches opening to reveal what appeared to be specialized weaponry. "Those aren't standard marine armaments," Sandersonia observed grimly. "Vegapunk's Special Projects Division," Elder Nyan confirmed. "Weapons designed to counter even the most powerful devil fruits." Naruto stepped forward, his decision made. "Let me handle this. There's no need to risk Amazon Lily in a direct confrontation." "And what do you propose?" Hancock asked, studying him intently. "I'll disable their ship, render it harmless without destroying it completely." A demonstration of power is warning rather than retaliation. He met her gaze directly. "Trust me." After a moment's consideration, Hancock nodded. "Do it, but know that we stand ready to support you if needed." Naruto moved to the edge of the harbor overlook, focusing his chakra as he entered sage mode. The natural energy of Amazon Lily flowed into him, different from that of his world yet fundamentally compatible. With this enhanced perception, he could sense the CP-0 vessel clearly, the positions of crew members, the energy signatures of their weapons, the subtle vibrations as they prepared to attack. "Ready, Kurama?" he asked mentally. "Always, Kit," the fox responded. "Let's show these government dogs what happens when they threaten our allies." Golden chakra enveloped Naruto as he activated his Nine Tails mode, the sudden burst of energy causing nearby warriors to step back in awe. Without hesitation, he leapt from the overlook, crossing the distance to the CP-0 vase cell in a single bound that carried him high above their deck. From below, shouts of alarm rang out as the crew spotted the glowing figure descending toward them. Weapon emplacement swiveled upward, racking his movement with surprising precision. "Fire!" someone commanded, and multiple energy beams converged on Naruto's position. But he was already moving, his enhanced speed making him nearly invisible to normal perception. He dodged between the energy beams, analyzing their composition as they passed. "Sea stone particulates suspended in concentrated energy fields," Kurama observed. "Clever. Signed to disrupt devil fruit abilities on contact. But not chakra," Naruto concluded with grim satisfaction. He landed on the ship's deck in a flash of golden light, immediately creating a dozen Shadow W clones that scattered across the vessel. Marines and what appeared to be specialized CP-0 operatives moved to engage, wielding weapons that